Mrs. Perkins won the prize, but I got in the biggest pickle at the county fair.
This is another in the adventures of America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator, Johnny Dollar. At insurance investigation, Johnny Dollar is only an expert. At making out his expense account, he is an absolute genius.
Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar. To Home Office, Corinthian Liability and Bonding Company, Terminal Building, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of my expenditures during my assignment as bodyguard to Grand Blue Ribbon Champion, Spotted Poland China Hog, Rosie Barron of Iowa. Or How You Cast My Pearls of Wisdom Before Swine. Or Out of the Fire into the Frying Pan. Expense account, item 1. $76.80. Train and bus fare, Hartford to the town of Carver, county seat of Carver County, Iowa. Expense account, item 2, $2.50. 1 Coke, 3 handkerchiefs, a bottle of salt tablets, and sunglasses, with which to combat the Corn Belt heat. Item 3, 6 bits, jitney ride to the Carver County Fairgrounds. Undoubtedly named that because the band I found in the midst of playing its afternoon concert was only fair. Hey, friend.
How's that?
I'm looking for a pig named Rosie Barron of Iowa. Can you tell me where I'll find his cage?
Cage? They don't keep Rollo in no cage.
Rollo? Who's he?
Well, that's short for Rosie Barron of Iowa.
Oh, yeah. Any fool would know that.
Uh-huh.
Can you tell me where he is?
See that building over there, the livestock building?
Yeah.
You'll find Rollo in the swine wing.
Swine wing? Well, that conjures up a dainty picture. A flying pig.
Afraid Rollo won't ever do much flying. Weighs 980.
Oh, well, thanks a lot.
Neighbor.
Yeah?
Why don't you try slipping out of that there coat? You won't find it near as sweaty.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Hiram. Oh, he didn't even wait to be my best friend. Hey!
Wait, I'll come with you, neighbor.
It was 96 in the shade, but things were getting hotter. Shots and screams from the livestock building were the only things that could bring me on the run, with Hiram on my heels.
Hey, what do you suppose that was?
First, I ran into a stranger just outside the entrance.
Get out of the way. Let me out of here. There's loose in there.
Then I ran in through the door.
Somebody do something. Don't just stand there. Where's the sheriff?
Hey, Hiram, what happened?
Well, didn't you see? Didn't you hear? That there woman's Mrs. Tiller. Somebody must have stole her diamond brooch.
Oh, good. I was afraid somebody might have put the snatch on Rollo.
Her husband owns Rollo. They must have been taking her pictures of Mrs. Tiller in the middle of a crowd. And when they had her smiling real pretty, them flash bulbs went off, and then somebody must have reached around from behind her, yanked the brooch, and started shooting a gun in there.
That's a tried and true method of busting up a crowd to help make a getaway. Think anybody saw who did it?
Couldn't. Those flashes would have had them blind as bats for a minute. There's the sheriff.
What's his name?
Well, that's Harry Blewett.
Harry Blewett?
Yeah.
Sounds like a slogan from the Republican campaign.
Hey, here, you.
Wait a minute, let go. Well, everybody around here's trying to get my coat off. Come on, Sheriff. Loose the haberdasher.
All right, now, never mind the fancy talk, young fella. I saw something pass between you and one of the thieves just outside the door.
Oh, you're out of your mind. That guy bumped into me. He came crashing out of here, and I happened to be in the way.
I'll bet you happened to be in the way, accidentally on purpose.
Now, that's an early American comeback. But that's the way it was. Now, look, I won't ask you for a search warrant, Sheriff. You think I got the brooch on me? Start looking.
All right, I will.
All right. Now, in that pocket, cigarettes and a lighter.
I see 'em.
You see? Yeah. And in that pocket, handkerchiefs and salt tablets.
Salt tablets?
Mm-hmm. Now, why don't you look in my inside coat pocket? In there, you'll find my wallet and identification.
I was coming to that.
Yeah.
Dollar, insurance investigator,
right.
Hartford, Connecticut. Well, what brought you out here?
I'm a piggy sitter for the Corinthian Liability and Bonding Company. They wrote a policy for $25,000 on your friend Rollo, Rosie Barron of Iowa.
Who ever heard of taking out a $25,000 insurance policy on a hog?
I did. And right now I wish I hadn't. Some people pay high premiums for publicity, Sheriff. And that's what the Blue Ribbon Prime Packing Company is doing in this case. Now, may I have my wallet back? I want to count my money.
Yeah, now, here. All right. Here's your wallet. You may think you're quite the joker, young fella, but I'm telling you right now, I'm going to keep an eye on you.
I got a better idea than that, Harry. If I were you, I'd go looking for that photographer.
Why? What'd he do?
He took the picture. And there's just a chance the thief may be in it.
Say, that gives me an idea.
Sheriff, whoever says you aren't smart makes no mistake. Rollo, the prize porker, wasn't hard to find. First, I followed a few signs. Then it was a matter of closing in on a contented series of juicy, slurping grunts that came blurping up out of a succulent mound of Louisiana yams. Rollo was all fat and a yard wide. His table manners weren't much. He didn't look very smart, but he sure looked healthy. 980 pounds on the hoof. A fine figure of a pig. Pardon me, miss. Could you tell me who's in charge around here?
Well, just for the moment, I am.
Well, I'm trying to find a Mr. Worthington Tiller, who I take it owns this monster.
Monster? What?
What's the matter? Have I said something wrong?
You certainly have. And you've also said it to the wrong person. In case you don't know it, my name is Alva Anderson.
Oh, my name is Johnny Dollar. How do you do? What's all this got to do with Rollo?
Nothing. I just raised Rosie Barron of Iowa from a suckling, that's all.
Kind of got away from you, didn't it? I'm sorry, Miss Anderson. I apologize. To you, too, Rollo.
I'm sorry about the interruption, Miss Anderson. Some fool made off with my wife's diamond brooch. How's this excitement affecting Rollo? I hope he hasn't lost any weight.
Well, he took it very well, Mr. Tiller.
Oh, good.
This gentleman wants to see you, Mr. Dollar.
Oh, yes. Oh, from the insurance company.
That's
good,
right.
Good. Well, I'm glad you're here. We'll have your picture taken right away with my wife and Rollo. Oh, it'll make grand publicity for Blue Ribbon Prime Packers.
Oh, I don't mind having my picture taken.
Yeah.
Just so long as your wife doesn't mind having people pinch your diamond brooches.
Oh, well, then don't worry about that. It was fully insured.
Oh, that kind.
The thing I want you to worry about is Rollo here. As president of Blue Ribbon, I paid Miss Anderson $10,000 for this magnificent swine, and I don't want anything to happen to it.
You bought him for $10,000, insured him for $25,000, and you don't want anything to happen to him?
Well, I don't mind paying those exorbitant premiums when I get back the kind of publicity this will bring in. I can see it in the papers now. America's fabulous insurance investigator, Johnny Dollar, sent from Hartford, Connecticut to guard the life of that fabulous prize swine, Rosie Barron of Iowa.
Well, Mr. Tiller, I don't mind getting my name in the paper for a pig, just so long as it is not in the obituary column. I just couldn't stand having my tombstone read, Johnny Dollar no longer am. He gave up his life for a great big ham. My tombstone tagline was over the head of Mr. Tiller, but it went over right nicely with Alva Anderson, who paid off with a smile. I parlayed that into a conversation, helped me pass the time while guarding Rollo, the poor man's blue boy. By the time it was over, Alva knew a lot about me, and I knew a lot about pigs. You know, you have beautiful eyes, Alva.
Mr. Dollar, do you know what's really interesting about the origin of swine? Why, it's estimated that the Chinese people domesticated swine about 2900 B.C.
And not only that, but I'm sure you'd like Hartford.
And Mr. Dollar, you probably don't know this, but a pig is one of the most important food animals. It's an economical converter of grain and other feeds into body tissue, as the products of which furnish meat and fat for human consumption.
Alva, darling, I'll only be in town for a little while.
And not only that, but people who say that pigs are dirty don't know what they're talking about. Why, sanitation is essential to good health, rapid growth and development, and profitable production.
Oh, Rollo, what have you got that I haven't got? I still know whether Alva stuck around because of my charms or Rollo's. But she was still there at the changing of the guard. When Mr. Tiller, in person, came to relieve me long enough for a trip to the dining hall. And what do you think they had for dinner? What else? Baked ham.
Oh, dinner was wonderful, Johnny.
Coming from you after eating baked ham, that sounds practically cannibalistic.
Oh, Johnny, stop. More coffee?
Nah, I've had it. Alva, you know, there's something I've been trying to say to you for the past 5 hours.
Yes, Johnny?
Well, it's just that, well, I want... What?
Oh, he's the sheriff.
Oh, why doesn't he blow his siren?
Well, I have to be going. It's time to get Rollo ready for the winner's parade past the grandstand. I'll just run along.
I'll just go with you.
Hey, Dollar, I want to talk to you.
Well, I'll see you later, Johnny.
Yeah. Well, Sheriff,
Hey, you being a sort of investigator, Dollar, I knew you'd be interested in my methods.
well, you're sure interfering with mine.
Huh?
Yeah.
Oh, well, do you know what I did?
What?
I found that photographer, had that picture developed, and rushed it up to the state capitol. And they just called me. Dollar, there's a known criminal in that photo. He's got that brooch, and he's on the loose. Do you know what that means?
Yeah. It means that you shouldn't be sitting here talking to me. Who is this villain?
They say he's the... Ooch over here.
Yeah. What?
They say he's known as Little Rocky. Originally hailed from Arkansas. You'd know him if you saw him. He's the fella that bumped into you. I want you to help me look for him.
I take only one job at a time, Sheriff. Right now, I got a pig to mind. I think it was the Grand March. Boy, in case I'm interested later, how much do you pay your special deputies a day?
$7 and expenses.
Sheriff Blewett, I'm afraid that blows it. The Carver County Pickle and Pie winners were lining up to lead the Grand March. By the time I got to the grandstand, down at the tag end of the livestock echelon, there was a shiny white cab and trailer sporting the markings and mottos of the Blue Ribbon Prime Packing Company. And high upon it, perched on a platform and surrounded by a sturdy iron railing, stood that champion, the pride of the pork set, Rollo, Rosie Barron of Iowa. It was lovely. It was divine. I had a feeling that swelled my heart with pride. Here they were, products of the American home and the American soil. A fanfare of foodstuffs flowing from the horn of plenty. Just because of my association with Rollo, I felt that I was playing some small part in this gallant parade as it was started the first leg of its journey. It was inspiring. It was thrilling. It was... Boing! All of a sudden, it was downright frightening. As Rollo's chariot rolled by, I got an eyeful of its driver. It was my comrade in collision, the guy who had put the snatch on Mrs. Tiller's diamonds, Little Rocky from Arkansas. I added to my treasury of thankless tasks by trying to pin a tackle on a 5-ton truck. I got a door handle with one hand, running water with one foot, and a clout in the teeth from an unexpected adversary.
Knock him loose, Milo. He's on the running board.
Hey, what the... I was flat on my back. Everybody was screaming and hollering. The truck went crashing to the fence. And Rollo, Rosie Barron of Iowa, was one little piggy who wasn't staying at home.
In just a moment, the second act of Johnny Dollar. But first, taking in the action from Johnny Dollar, are you? All right, that's good, because staying with CBS is the way you'll head straight for the big return from vacation 8 days from now, Monday the 29th, of Lux Radio Theater and all the other big Monday night CBS favorites. And by staying with CBS, you'll find more action later tonight with Bill Grant of Call the Police and with Sam Spade, who'll be heard from on most of these same CBS stations. Now, with our star, Charles Russell, we return to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Johnny, are you all right? Can you get up?
Oh, the spirit's willing. I'm not sure about my spine.
Here, let me help.
I'm the guy who goes around telling kiddies never to hitch rides on trucks. Well, nobody can say I didn't make a dent in Iowa.
It was wonderful the way you tried. But what are you going to do now?
Right now, I don't know. The only place I can think of at the moment where I might find a hot pig is a barbecue stand.
Oh, this is no time to be funny.
Well, look, up until now, all the laughs are on me, kid, so let me be the judge, huh?
Well, what are you going to do?
Well, first I'm going to practice my arithmetic and see what adds up. You can't unload a stolen pig in a pawn shop. So, question number one is, where do you unload it? Where would you go?
Well, where would I... Well, I'd never thought of it.
Well, here's what I figured. The Rollo on the hoof is too well known to peddle for anything like the dough he's really worth. I mean, he's not like a big diamond that you can cut up in little... Or is he? What is the going price on pork?
The market this morning was at $23.50.
Well, that kind of money hardly sounds like Little Rocky's kind of project. But maybe things are tough. By the way, Alva, have you ever been in Arkansas by any chance?
Why'd you ask?
Just wondered.
Hey, Dollar, just a minute. I want to talk to you.
Barnyard bloodhound himself. Yeah, Sheriff?
Would you mind, Alvin?
I was just leaving.
How could she be that cold on such a hot night?
Huh?
What's bothering you, Sheriff?
I saw your little performance, Dollar, when you leapt at that truck. Just how hard was you really trying?
How hard was I... I ought to punch you in the nose, badge or no badge.
Now, don't you go getting huffy. I just want you to know that I don't fool easy. When I'm on a case, I'm suspicious of everybody.
Yeah, that must be rough on your wife. How often do you have her in handcuffs?
Huh? Well,
Now, look, Sheriff, all I need from you is the use of a car so I can go looking for old Lardhead.
No, you don't. There's enough missing around here as it is. Rollo, Miss Tiller's jewelry, and I ain't about to add a county vehicle to the mess. And besides, I want to keep an eye on you.
Good. You might learn something. Come on.
Here, wait a minute. Where are you going?
Over to the Ferris wheel. That truck hasn't been off the fairgrounds more than a couple of minutes. I want to get a look at the countryside.
Ferris wheel. Say, that gives me an idea.
I hoped it would. Come on. Say, you know, Sheriff, I don't know very much about this farm-side ferreting racket.
Well, there's more to it than meets the eyes, I can tell you that.
Oh, yeah, I'll bet there is. Tell me, didn't I see a feed trough on Rollo's truck with a lot of mash in it?
Well, now, let's see. If he ate yams this afternoon, he'd eat mash tonight, all right.
Does mash kick up any kind of a smell?
Oh, sour as swill. But the pig seems to like it.
Uh-huh. How does this sound to you, Sheriff? Suppose right after you take your ride to the top of the Ferris wheel to case the countryside, we were to get ourselves a nice hungry pig.
Say, that gives me an idea. We could take that pig and he could smell that mash in the air and sniff out the trail of that truck.
Sheriff, if you aren't a genius, I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh, Shaw.
It was planting time in Iowa that night, at least for ideas, two of which I had planted in the not-too-fertile mind of Sheriff Harry Blewett. And as long as it took us to walk from the trotting track to the Ferris wheel, it came harvest time for notion number one.
Right this way for the big ride on the big wheel. Hurry, hurry, hurry.
Okay, mister, okay. I'm the sheriff. I want you to run me up to the top of that wheel and hold me there long enough for me to get a look around.
When the wheel came to a stop with Harry Blewett sitting in his little cage at the top, I pulled a low trick on the high sheriff. I bought a pink lemonade from the juice stand next to the Ferris wheel, walked over to the motor that rolled the big heap, unscrewed the cap on the gas tank, and gave it a big, long drink. I hope it wasn't doing to people's stomachs what it did to that motor. You might well remember this harmless little deceit the next time you have occasion to get rid of a sheriff.
This kind of publicity is a little too expensive, Dollar. I demand that you do something.
Now, don't worry, Mr. Tiller. I am going to do something.
Yes,
And I'll thank you to remember that the only ones who stand to get hurt right at this point are the insurance companies that wrote the policies on your pig and your wife's diamond brooch.
Why, Worthington, I hadn't thought of that.
Huh?
Why should we worry? My brooch is insured for way over the value, dear. We hadn't...
Hortense, You keep flapping that loud tongue of yours, and the first thing you know, they'll be accusing us.
Why, they wouldn't dare.
Oh, yes, we would, Mrs. Tiller.
But we're just not the type
A
to...
$15,000 profit on a pig and whatever else you could make on your jewelry might make anybody the type, Mrs. Tiller.
I beg your
Now,
pardon.
see here, Dollar. I've had just about enough of your slanderous implications. I have a few thoughts you might profit by.
Go ahead, Worthington.
I'm always interested in profit, Tiller.
My father had the same thing happen to him back in 1902.
That's right.
Remember, dear?
Yes.
In Nebraska. He bought a prize pig at a fancy price. And then the scoundrel that sold it to him turned around and stole it back. There, see? What do you think of that?
Would this be a suggestion that we throw the young lady who sold your pig to you in the pokey on the strength of something that happened 37 years ago?
Well,
That's for you to decide, Dollar.
Right.
Just don't say I didn't warn you.
Uh-huh, I see. Yeah. If you don't have an orchid to pin on a young lady, try suspicion. With most of the crowd packed in the grandstand watching the free attractions, I had a good chance to scout the fairground for Alva Anderson, from whom I wanted to learn a little bit more about the habits of not only pigs, but their ex-owners. Our trail led me past the home-baked cakes, hybrid corn, the watermelon pickle, tractor and harrow exhibits, and all the way back to where I'd first met her, Rollo's pen in the swine wing of the livestock building. But when I got there, Rollo's cupboard was bare. Alva was leaving for the rear door in the company of a small, tough-looking gent carrying a sack over his shoulder. Name of Little Rocky from Arkansas. I could hardly believe it, but they piled into a car and hauled off up the road. At the risk of adding one last insult to the most recent injury I'd inflicted upon Sheriff Blewett, I stole his car and went dusting up the highway in hot pursuit. There's nothing easier to follow than a red taillight on a clear night. And the bright Mazda Ruby tacked onto the rear of Little Rocky's car led me around the village of Carver and 11 miles out to the pastures to a shack hidden in a grove of elm trees 100 yards off the road. I parked the car and legged it in. From 25 feet away from the house, I could call the roll through an open window. They were all there. Little Rocky, the strong-arm man who would knock me off the running board, Alva Anderson, and last but not least, there was Rollo, all 980 pounds of him, and most important to me, still alive.
Here you are, Milo, you stupid clown. Oh, stop. This is all the sweet potatoes that was left. First we go through them, and then we'll be ready for you, Alva.
Oh, but I told you I don't have it.
We'll see about that later. Hey, Milo, don't get the porker excited. I didn't do Here, put the sack on the table. Then when we look at him, we throw him out the window and away from him. Now, hurry up.
All right. Well, it ain't in this one. Ain't in this one either. Nope. Ain't in this one.
Shut up, just look.
Well, I just...
And from now on, from you, no thinking. Anybody dumb enough to stash a $30,000 hunk of jewelry and pig food ought to go see a head doctor.
Oh.
Come on.
Through the open window, I was being bombarded by sweet potatoes and facts. While making a getaway after ripping the brooch from Mrs. Tiller's throat, Little Rocky's accomplice had suffered a sudden attack of panic and had hidden the brooch in one of Rollo's lunchtime yams. Whether that yam was inside the piggy or out, they and I were apparently just on the verge of learning.
That does it, I guess. Ain't here.
Then that means...
That means your little friend here had a $30,000 snack today, which right now is giving me a great big bellyache. You know all about pigs. What do we do about it?
Well, Rocky was yellow. He wouldn't rub him out.
Look who's talking. Here, take my 38 if you're so tough. Yeah, I thought so. Now shut up.
Well, I ain't killing no piggy with him just standing there looking at me. If he'd only make a break for it, I'd mow him down.
You. Now look, baby, we'll kill him if we got her. We want that chunk of ice and we want it fast. Milo, tease him into the corner with a sweet potato.
We're throwing them all out the window.
Oh, please, Mr. Rocky,
You
don't.
shut up, too, and sit down. Close your eyes if you want to.
Oh, please, Mr. Rocky.
In the manner of Sheriff Blewett, I had an idea. Given to me, of course, by Rocky. Alva was sitting in the corner, Rollo was scratching his side by rubbing it against the opposite, and Rocky and Milo were standing shoulder to shoulder in the middle of the room, ready to advance on him. I groped around in the dark until I found one of the yams, and taking the sweet potato delicately in my hand, I tossed it through the window so that it would roll to a point just behind Rocky and his pal Milo.
Oh, look out! He's charging! He's shooting balls!
Johnny, help!
Rollo took my bait and, getting to it, knocked his two would-be executioners in a heap on the floor. I took over from there, jumping to the window and applying a kitchen chair dutifully to the prescribed areas, reducing enemies to a state of unconscious surrender. They gave out, Alva gave up, and Rollo gave me a dirty look. Well, Mr. Tiller, here he is, safe and sound, good as new, fat and sassy.
Well, good. Congratulations.
And not only that, but in him someplace, he not only has a good fighting heart, but also that diamond brooch of your wife's.
Oh, yes, very interesting. Well, I'd better go charter a plane. Rollo is due in Kansas City at noon tomorrow.
Oh, but it might upset him, Mr. Tiller. Rosie Barron of Iowa's never flown before. He might lose weight.
Yeah, what's the big hurry to get him to Kansas City? Is he booked for a personal appearance?
Oh, no. No, hardly that. He's due to be slaughtered at a special ceremony. All the plans are made. Oh, I wouldn't want to disappoint my boys. They've been looking forward to this.
Oh.
How do you like that? Why, it's almost murder. Poor Rollo.
Oh, Johnny.
Come on, let's get out of here, Alva. Gosh, who'd have ever thought I, Johnny Dollar, would ever gotten so attached to a pig? Expense account, item 4, $3.50. Dinner for Alva and me. A vegetable dinner, by the way. And speaking of that, reminds me, if you find a $30,000 brooch in a pork chop, it'll only mean that the Blue Ribbon Prime Packing Company didn't have much luck when they went looking for it. Expense account item 5, $20. One new gold-plated badge, which I sent to Sheriff Harry Blewett, appeasement, for having stranded him atop that Ferris wheel, for stealing his car, and for suggesting that he use a hungry pig for a bloodhound. Oh, the porter followed the mash scent, all right. Next morning, they found Sheriff Blewett searching an old mash factory, 8 miles the wrong side of town. Item 6, $76.80. Bus and train fare, Carver, Iowa, back to Hartford, Connecticut. But I'm still wondering every morning at breakfast time, what else can you eat with eggs? Except ham or bacon or sausage. And maybe you don't think that's a problem, having known a certain champion named Rollo, Rosie Barron of Iowa. Expense account total, $1,463. Yours, truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is produced and directed by Norman MacDonald and stars Charles Russell with script by Paul Dudley and Gil Dowd. Featured in the cast were Parley Bear, Sammy Hill, and John Daner, with Junius Matthews, Ann Morrison, Jack Crucian, and Paul Dubov. Pinto Colvig was Rollo. The special music is written and conducted by Leith Stevens. Be sure to be with us at the same time next week when another most unusual expense account is handed in by
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Your Hit Parade on Parade will be back tonight in the familiar CBS Jack Benny time with the great tunes of August 12 years ago. Sweet Leilani and Where or When. Many another still green in your memory will be among the hits you will hear. Speaking of hits, put down August 29th this year in your little book. That's when Arthur Godfrey and his talent scouts, the stars of Lux Radio Theater, My Friend Irma, and Bob Hawke return to join Inner Sanctum. So make your Monday nights a regular date with CBS. This is Roy Rowan speaking. Stay tuned now for your Hit Parade on Parade. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
I always say if you take a trip halfway around the world, you've got to expect you'll get your ticket punched.
This is another in the adventures of America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator, Johnny Dollar. At Insurance Investigation, Johnny Dollar is only an expert. At making out his expense account, he is an absolute genius.
Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to the Constant Sun Trading Company, Cairo, Egypt. And may I say, this is an unexpected pleasure. The one thing I didn't expect to bump into during this case was somebody to pay the bill. It started out being my answer to a fire alarm rung 12,000 miles away by an old wartime friend. It wound up being a game of who gets killed first, with a bunch of guys who suddenly declared themselves a small peacetime war. The difference of opinion arose over a little hassle I might call the expiring nickels and the Egyptian jackpot. Expense account, item 1, $2,200. Air transportation from little old Connecticut to big old French Indochina, or specifically Hartford to Halfpenny. That's where I got off the plane to take a breather. But after smelling the air and getting hit in the face with a bucket full of lukewarm raindrops, I got right on another plane bound for my destination, where I'd been summoned by an urgent cable, Calcutta. We took off on instruments in the downpour of a drenching monsoon. It was like climbing up a waterfall, blindfolded. We got chased up to 20,000 feet, clear up into the penthouse, by a batch of black-hearted thunderheads laced with lightning. And there we stayed, sucking oxygen for 9 dreary hours and waiting for the moment we'd get off our island in the sky. Expense account, item 2, 3 rupees. Transportation from airport to the address of old friend who had summoned me. A place you'd never expect to find trouble. In church. And what a church. 2 Quonset huts on Chowrangi Road. A couple of dozen wooden benches, a retired USO Hammond organ, and most important, its pastor. A guy I'd met when I was calling the CBI Theater my home away from home, Chaplain Joe Blessing.
Johnny, it's good to see you.
Long time, Joe. Too long. Well, you haven't changed a bit since you were passing out those SL slips to unhappy GIs. So you did decide to stay out here after all.
Yeah, I decided the East Indian brand of soul needed a little more saving than the kind I used to know back in Magnolia, Tennessee. Now, come on in the office, Johnny. It was good of you to come right over. You must be wondering why you did.
Well, your cable did start a worry or two, Joe. You know, when an ex-soldier gets the trouble call from a chaplain, something's really wrong. What's up?
Sit down. Johnny, tell me, how'd you like to do some work in my department?
Wait a minute. I wouldn't know where to start.
I'm asking you to save a man's soul and to save another man's life while you're doing it.
Why me, Joe?
Why did I ask you to come all the way from Hartford, Connecticut? Well, Johnny, the ways are devious. There wasn't time for me to do anything else.
Huh?
If I'd gone through the proper channels here, if I'd become involved with all the inevitable red tape, well, there just wasn't time. Johnny, there's a man in Cairo waiting to be executed at dawn day after tomorrow for a murder he didn't commit. And here in Calcutta is a man who not only witnessed that crime, but has in his possession the evidence that can save that man from swinging.
Uh-huh. Now, who is this man on the flying rope end?
Lionel Brooke Nichols. He's the president of a vast enterprise called the Constant Sun Trading Company. Now, Johnny, I wasn't ignoring the fact that you work for a living. I'm sure that if you're successful, you can name your own price. This is not a colloquialism, Johnny, but Mr. Brooke Nichols has nothing but money.
I didn't realize that such big men got into such big trouble.
Oh, he didn't get into it all by himself.
Huh?
Oh, no. No, this particular big man had the bad luck to have a fun-loving cousin who'd like to see him out of the way, and the faster the better.
Name of?
Miles Atkinson. He must be some sort of big wheel in the Egyptian government. That's all I know about him. Except that to gain control of the Constant Sun Company, he would move heaven and earth to see Brooke Nichols dead.
Well, I don't care what he does with the earth, but I guess I can't stand by and let him mess around with your heaven. Now, let's get down to cases. What about this dude here in Calcutta, the witness with the evidence?
Well, his name's William Briggs. He's a very sick man, Johnny. Mm-hmm. Knowing that he might die soon, and it looks like he might. He's had a sudden rush of conscience to the mouth. He wants to talk. Evidently, he's decided that since it's too late to save his body, he'd better do a quick job on his soul.
And I nurse him to Cairo, is that it?
No. I'm sending a young assistant of mine who'll take that job off your hands. I think you'll like him, Johnny. Now, I want you to get Briggs to the right officials. Arrangements have been made for an ambulance to meet you in Cairo. And, well, we've chartered a cargo plane to take you there. Now, the pilot says he can get you there by tomorrow night.
Well, I spent so much time in the air getting here that it shouldn't make any difference. But why a cargo plane? Why not a passenger plane? They have nice soft seats.
Well, Johnny, the airlines refuse to transport a leper.
Heaven sure has some good salesmen on the road, and Chaplain Joe Blessings is one of the best. Before I knew it, a big Horizons Unlimited plane was lifting off the runway at Calcutta, and I was in it. Sitting on a suitcase, it looked like I'd never have time to unpack. The invalid Briggs was forward, being bedded down under the gentle hand of Chaplain Joe's assistant, Frankie.
Well, that is done. And I give up me Saturday afternoon at Belmont Park for this.
You're in luck, Frankie. Think of all the losers you missed betting on.
Mr. Dollar, you have the philosophy of a man who has never enjoyed the exquisite thrill of losing his last $2 upon a horse who was retarding the improvement of the breed.
Young man, you've never heard of the Bluegrass branch of the Dollar family? Kentucky, sir.
Mr. Dollar, sir, if it were not for a certain horse from Kentucky named Breezy Boy, who ran a very poor eighth at Rockingham, I would not only be a Kentucky colonel, I would be a Kentucky general, passing the time of day with my esteemed co-general, 3-star Hennessy.
Yes. What's this? Whose briefcase?
Briggs. He wants you should take care of it.
And what's in it?
What's in it should be in a holster.
How do you know?
Mr. Dollar, I got a sense of feel. Besides, I looked. It's a Luger.
A Luger, huh? Yeah. Off that, I'd say we are now in possession of the evidence. The murder weapon, in person. Exhibit A. Oops. Still loaded. With Exhibit A making an arsenal out of my right coat pocket, we touched wheels at Bombay for 3 hours and fuel, and then hiked back up for the run across the Arabian Sea. We made landfall high on the coast of Saudi Arabia, and the freight of the Cuff shoreline led us on to the Queen of Sheba's old hometown, Aden, where we sat down again for service, airplane and personal. Frankie and I got our sick man Briggs out and into the shade of a hangar, figuring he could use a breath of fresh air. But he didn't find it in that sun-baked hellhole. The grubby little ground crew burned up 4 valuable hours, taking their own unsweet time servicing the ship. That left us just 8 hours to get Briggs and his evidence up to Cairo, and left me almost enough time to save Mr. Brooke Nichols from taking the rope ride. Estimated time of arrival, midnight. Time of execution, 6 a.m. And I've learned that British officials are hard to wake up. The pilot stood the ship straight on its tail and made a fighter takeoff, getting out of there. We were 40 minutes out of Aden, about 5,000 feet above the Red Sea, when we ran into what I've learned to expect in my business, the unexpected.
Hello. Could either of you gentlemen tell me where I pay my fare?
Well, where did you come from?
Hey, a walk-on like this I have not seen since Minsky.
It's all right, gentlemen. You can pop your eyes back in. You've seen a woman before.
Oh, I've never scooped one up out of the sky before.
Could it be she's an angel?
What are you doing here?
I'm afraid I'm what you'd call a stowaway.
How'd you get aboard?
When the plane was empty, I locked myself in the powder room. I'm sorry I had to do it this way, but I have to get to Cairo immediately. The next airline flight doesn't go out till 11 tonight.
I should write to the captain and have him turn around and dump you back.
Please, don't. I'm perfectly willing to pay my way.
Don't worry. We can't spare the time.
Mr. Dollar, there are only certain things which make air travel a pleasure to certain people. With me, that is a stewardess, and I would be glad to brief her about her duties.
You go check the patient, Frankie. I'll check Miss Stowaway.
That's what comes from always being only an assistant.
I noticed that poor man on the stretcher when you took him out. Who is he?
Never mind. What's your name?
Fate Fabian.
What's so important you've got to get to Cairo this way?
Sorry, Mr. Dollar, that's a secret.
It's also a secret how you get into that tight little dress you're wearing.
I'm glad you like it.
A dress, yes. Secrets, no. When I find myself in an airplane with a stowaway, I smell trouble.
That trouble you smell costs $85 an ounce.
Now, listen, save your sharp talk for a cocktail lounge. Don't waste it here. You must think I'm kidding. This is serious. You're flying across international boundaries. Now, who are you?
I told you. Fate Fabian. Here. Here is my passport, and here is money. How much?
Okay. We'll call it a sort of bond to ensure your good behavior. $500.
All that for good behavior? That's awfully high.
So is this airplane. If you don't like it, jump. She didn't jump. And, after 7.5 more droning hours, I was glad of it. Fate Fabian was all woman, all beautiful. All in a pretty nice relief from watching the time run through my wristwatch. She spent most of the trip sharing my suitcase with me. But once I looked up at her, when she was silhouetted against a window, posed against that moonstruck Egyptian sky. And it was almost worth the trip, the way she looked, wearing those stars in her hair. Just about then, a vague glow on the horizon took over where my conscience left off. We were coming into Cairo, and the problem of landing 50,000 pounds of airplane replaced the problem of landing 120 pounds of woman. I've never learned how to hold back a sigh of relief when I hear those big tires take a hold on the runway. And I sighed another one when I saw an ambulance standing by at the parking ramp. By the time the loading platform was pushed into place and the door opened, the ambulance was backed up, ready to receive Briggs.
Oh, are you the chap bringing a Mr. Briggs in from Calcutta?
Yeah, that's right. Never mind the stretcher. He's on one.
Oh, right, sir. We'll fetch him off then. Come along, Roscoe. Come in.
You all ready to go, Frankie?
Mr. Dollar, watch your language. That is not the thing to say about Mr. Briggs. But he will look at home in that ambulance.
Now then. Oh, congratulations upon the trip, Governor.
Thanks.
Take the other end, Roscoe. We'll hoist the poor chap out of it. All right, here we go now.
Hey, I'd better check with the pilot, Frankie. Give these guys a hand, will you? They may need it getting down that ramp.
Anything that moves me toward the end of this is a pleasure. Easy now. You want me to help lifting him in? Hey, Mr. Dollar, these guys ain't just plain ambulance drivers.
In just a moment, we return to the second act of Johnny Dollar. But first, whatever you're planning to do over the Labor Day weekend, be sure to plan to listen over most of these same stations tonight to a wonderful new show on CBS. It's Horace Height's original Youth Opportunity Show, a full half hour of fun and excitement. You'll get the thrill of a lifetime hearing talented young Americans get the chance of a lifetime. Don't forget, Sunday night with Horace Height, the Horace Height Original Youth Opportunity Show, starting tonight on CBS.
Tune in this fall for the shows that you love best of all. Listen carefully, here's the address. It's CBS.
Now, with our star, Charles Russell, we return to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
I had made 4 steps toward the cockpit when I heard Frankie yell, and a half a step back toward the door when I heard the shots. By the time I got to the top of the ramp, the ambulance was about 20 yards away. And pitted against that distance were two overlapping thoughts. One, the way to stop, or at least slow it down, was to puncture the rear tires. Two, the tool at hand was that loaded Exhibit A Luger that should have been in my pocket. It wasn't there. I looked around, didn't see it. But I thought I knew where to find it. Come on, open up. Or I'll put this fire extinguisher through that door. And if your head isn't in the way, I'll get that neck.
Wait a minute.
Moral, don't use the same hiding place twice.
It could be that I wasn't hiding.
And it could be that purse is now holding a Luger. Give me it. Yeah. Now all I need is to hear you say you don't know how it got there.
I don't know how it got there.
That does it. Come on, you're coming with me. Come on, get going.
Ouch! You don't have to do that.
What I did have to do was dig up some transportation. It turned out to be a taxi whose driver had slept through the excitement and therefore was the only one at the hack stand. I think he was still asleep when I gave my unwilling companion an ungentlemanly shove into the rear seat. And we left. Nobody in full control of their faculties could drive the way he did. He knew he had a horn, but somebody had forgotten to tell him about brakes. All I had to go on was the direction in which that ambulance had taken off, straight toward Cairo. So that's where we went, straight toward Cairo. Come on, whatever your name is, sit up and start your story.
My name is Fate Fabian.
Glad I couldn't be less interested. What I want to know is where those friends of yours take Briggs and Frankie.
I have no friends.
I can believe that. Whatever those thugs are, where are they?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Now, don't be coy. You and those mugs in that ambulance add up, that's all. Doesn't take any brains to figure out what you're all working for the same guy.
What same guy?
Miles Atkinson. The guy that's trying to keep witness Briggs and his evidence from saving Brooke Nichols from hanging about 5.5 hours from
You're being stupid.
Maybe so. All I know is somebody got away with a witness, and I find the evidence sharing your purse with your eyebrow
I found
pencil.
it on the plane. Somebody must have dropped
Oh,
it.
don't give me that. You can probably recite the serial number. Okay. You wanted the murder weapon? I'm going to be a real nice guy, just long enough to give it to you. And then I'm going to give you to the police. They have a nice little game they play with combinations like that. Hello. Are you the chief inspector?
I am.
Now, this girl keeps telling me her name is Fate Fabian.
How do you do, Inspector? I've looked forward to this.
I'll bet. Well, my name is Johnny Dollar. I'm looking for somebody who knows the Brooke Nichols case.
Well, you certainly came to the right place. I know about the Brooke Nichols case.
Well, that's what I'm here about. You can bust that case wide open, Inspector. Brooke Nichols is innocent. Now, here. This Luger is all the evidence we'll need.
Thank you, Mr. Dollar.
One thing you'll still have to help me find, though, is a man named Briggs. He was an eyewitness to the murder. I brought him all the way from Calcutta, and somebody put the snatch on him at the airport. Not only that, they grabbed the guy who was helping me.
Oh, yes. Yes, that would be the obstreperous young gentleman you call Frankie.
Well, you know where he is?
Oh, yes, indeed I do.
Then he's all right.
Yes. If you could call a man all right when he's just been arrested for the murder of Mr. Briggs.
Murder?
Yes. Mr. Briggs was shot in the ambulance that took him from your plane.
Hey, what is this?
This is a very good time for both of you to remain perfectly still, Mr. Dollar. After you raise your hand, Miss Fabian, you needn't bother. There's hardly enough of that dress to conceal all of you, let alone the weapons.
Thank you.
Mr. Dollar, this is what a romanticist would call a poetic injustice. You see, this Luger, the evidence, as you call it, happens to belong to me.
But that's the murder weapon. Who are you, anyway?
Chief of Inspectors Miles Atkinson.
Miles Atkinson? Oh, no.
Oh, yes.
I fly 5,000 miles from Calcutta to put you in the hands of the police. And you turn out to be the police.
Yes. Bloody convenient, isn't it?
Not for me, it isn't.
Get steady, old boy. You know,
This gun was probably the most fortunate purchase I ever made in my life. First, it killed a man who was in my way. Then, because it disappeared, it made it possible for me to establish false evidence, ostensibly proving that my esteemed cousin, Brooks Nichols, was guilty of the murder. And now, his death by hanging will place in my hands the controlling interest of the Constant Sun Trading Company.
Quite a bargain.
Thank you, Mr. Dollar.
Not you, the gun.
Which I shall now put to its final use. And after it is disposed of you two, I shall dispose of it.
That was the prettiest confession I've ever heard. I'm surprised that a chief inspector and bargain hunter should sell himself out so cheaply.
What do you mean by that?
That the confession was complete, voluntarily made in front of witnesses, and that we are leaving with it, and that you are coming with us.
Hey, Fate, baby, take it easy. No sense going on the make for a hot bullet.
Mr. Dollar is right. I warn you, the one who moves first dies first.
Very well.
Fate.
One step closer, Miss Fabian.
I'm not afraid of you.
All right, you asked for it. Now take it. What is this?
No use,
What
no
is this?
bullets.
No, you can't stop me now.
Take cover,
You won't.
Fate. When ladies stay so far, now it's boys'
Look
time.
out, he's throwing the gun.
He did throw the gun, but not at me. At the single light fixture in the middle of the ceiling. And when that went out, so did Atkinson. Out through the door. And the case was on. It was no dope. He knew where the light switches were, and as he went racing past them, he switched them off. It was like night flying without the benefit of carrots in my diet. Chasing him down those long, empty, echoing corridors and up the stairs to the roof. At the door to the roof, I threw on our brakes by throwing an arm around Fate. She was soft, and it was dark, but I was scared. I figured Atkinson might have picked up a weapon on the way. And that turned out to be an underestimate. What he had picked up was a fire hose. When we stepped through the door, we got hit by a big fat bolt of liquid lightning. A couple of 100 pounds of water backed up by a couple of 1,000 pounds of pressure. It felt like a salmon swimming upstream to spawn. Over at the edge of the roof, braced against the low parapet, was Atkinson, using all his weight to keep the writhing nozzle from flipping him around. He was just one man on a fire department's errand. Hey, wait, I'll move around the other side. Try and throw that water off you. Get over that valve. See it?
Where?
That wheel over there. The end of the hose he ain't on. Turn off the water. Come on. Quick.
I see it, I'll get it.
Instead of dropping away to a dribble, the hose suddenly snapped its muscle up to its hardest as a driving surge of water went through it. And before Atkinson could get himself untangled from the canvas and rubber snake, it snapped him over the parapet, off the roof, and high into the night. Hey, Fate! Turn off that water!
What happened?
Poetic justice, baby. That fire hose threw Mr. Chief Inspector Atkinson off the roof. And he made a hole in one. Right through that gallows down there. The same gallows from which Brooke Nichols was supposed to hang in a few hours.
That's horrible. Let's move away from here.
Hey, wait a minute. That's not like you. After all, you're the gal who turned that water up instead of down.
You wanted it done right. Why didn't you send a plumber?
I won't ask you whether you meant it that way or not. As far as I'm concerned, it turned out just jolly this way. Oh, and while I'm at it, I'd like to thank you for taking such a brave chance with my life downstairs in the
Oh,
office.
really, Mr. Dollar? I knew that gun wasn't loaded. I unloaded it myself back in the powder room in the airplane. Just before you accused me of trying to steal it, remember?
The next time I take a shower, I promise to wash my mouth out with soap. But now I figure it's also about time you came clean. Really, now, who are you?
I'm sorry. My name is still Fate Fabian.
All right, you've made a sale. Your name is Fate Fabian. Well, what's your interest in this case?
No interest at all. It's just part of my job. They do hire people to police the police, you know. I happen to be one of those people. Do you want to see my credentials?
Your credentials look all right to me, baby. We got off the subject, off the roof, and into the problem of getting Brooke Nichols off the end of a rope. After going through those motions, and that gal made all the motions, including retrieving young Frankie from the pokey, I kissed Fate Fabian goodbye, just for luck. And receiving no interest on that investment, we headed back to the airfield. By the time that fireball Egyptian sun had poked its top rim over the leftover GI issue hangars at the east end of the field, the plane was serviced and panting to pry open the sky. Came the time to board ship, came a visitor.
I say, old boy, is Mr. Dollar about?
Yeah, about right here.
Oh, splendid, splendid. I'm Lionel Brooke Nichol.
Congratulations.
I suppose you know you saved my life.
Yeah, with a lot of help, yeah.
Well, I should like to make it up to you somehow. Is there anything I can do?
Well, besides paying my expenses.
Oh, naturally, naturally. Send your chit to the Constant Sun Trading Company. You'll be paid post-haste. But beyond that.
Well, could do something for the guy who got me out here. Back in Calcutta, I have an old army buddy named Chaplain Joe Blessings. He runs a church.
Oh, splendid, splendid. Perhaps I could donate a stained glass window or anything you suggest.
Did you say anything?
Yes, anything.
Okay. Well, look, Chaplain Joe Blessings doesn't need a stained glass window because he hasn't got any place to put it. What he does need is a new church. A real one with steeples and all that.
Oh. All right, then. Very well. Done.
Expense account, item 3. Same as original entry. Transportation from the land of the Sphinx to the land of the free by way of Calcutta, where I delivered a happier, though wiser, Frankie. Received the blessings of Chaplain Joe Blessing and ordered a custom-made lightweight pearl-handled blackjack in blue suede and inscribed, "To Fate Fabian, with the hope that you will never fail to supply the black to go with this blue. Love, J.D." Well, I guess that's all. Oh, expense account total. Oh, wait, there's one more. Expense account item 4, $10. Paid to Cassidy's Pawn Shop, Hartford, Connecticut, for purchase of one Hawk Air Medal. After all that flying, I thought I deserved one. Now, expense account total, $5,350.40. If you don't think the founder of your company is worth that, kindly suggest someone who might. Yours, truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, was produced and directed by Gordon T. Hughes and stars Charles Russell, with script by Paul Dudley and Gil Dowd. Featured in the cast were Georgia Ellis, Jack Edwards, Parley Bear, and Paul Dubov. The special music is written and conducted by Leith Stevens. Be sure to be with us again when Johnny Dollar returns to the air after a short vacation. Listen on Saturday, October 1st, when another most unusual expense account is handed in by
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Next week at this time, on many of these same stations, Eve Arden will bring you the madcap adventures of America's favorite schoolmistress, our Miss Brooks. Miss Arden, who has been heard later on Sunday evening for more than a year, is moving to this new time, and CBS cordially invites you to hear her and her famous brand of comedy. To make sure, consult your local newspaper listings next Sunday for the new time, when you'll hear Eve Arden and our Miss Brooks. Now, stay tuned for Your Hit Parade on Parade, which follows immediately over these same CBS network stations. This is Roy Rowan speaking. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
can't stop me now. Take cover, Pete. When ladies stay so far, now it's boys'
Look out, he's throwing the gun.
He did throw the gun, but not at me. At the single light fixture in the middle of the ceiling. And when that went out, so did Atkinson. Out through the door. And the chase was on. He was no dope. He knew where the light switches were, and as he went racing past them, he switched them off. It was like night flying without the benefit of carrots in my diet. Chasing him down those long, empty, echoey corridors and up the stairs to the roof. At the door to the roof, I threw on our brakes by throwing an arm around Fate. She was soft, and it was dark, but I was scared. I figured Atkinson might have picked up a weapon on the way. And that turned out to be an underestimate. What he had picked up was a fire hose. When we stepped through the door, we got hit by a big fat bolt of liquid lightning. A couple of 100 pounds of water backed up by a couple of 1,000 pounds of pressure. It felt like a salmon swimming upstream to spawn. Over at the edge of the roof, braced against the low parapet, was Atkinson, using all his weight to keep the writhing nozzle from flipping him around. He was just one man on a fire department's errand. Hey, wait, I'll move around the other side. Try and draw that water off you. Get over that valve. See it?
Where?
That wheel over there. The end of the hose he ain't on. Turn off the water. Come on. Quick.
I see it. I'll get it.
Instead of dropping away to a dribble, the hose suddenly snapped its muscle up to its hardest as a driving surge of water went through it. And before Atkinson could get himself untangled from the canvas and rubber snake, it snapped him over the parapet, off the roof, and high into the night. Hey, Fate! Turn off that water!
What happened?
Oh. Poetic justice, baby. That fire hose threw Mr. Chief Inspector Atkinson off the roof. And he made a hole in one. Right through that gallows down there. The same gallows from which Brooke Nichols was supposed to hang in a few hours.
That's horrible. Let's move away from here.
Hey, wait a minute. That's not like you. After all, you're the gal who turned that water up instead of down.
If you wanted it done right, why didn't you send a plumber?
I won't ask you whether you meant it that way or not. As far as I'm concerned, it turned out just jolly this way. Oh, and while I'm at it, I'd like to thank you for taking such a brave chance with my life downstairs in the office.
Oh, really, Mr. Dollar? I knew that gun wasn't loaded. I unloaded it myself back in the powder room in the airplane. Just before you accused me of trying to steal it, remember?
The next time I take a shower, I promise to wash my mouth out with soap. But now I figure it's also about time you came clean. Really, now, who are you?
I'm sorry. My name is still Fate Fabian.
All right, you've made a sale. Your name is Fate Fabian. Well, what's your interest in this case?
No interest at all. It's just part of my job. They do hire people to police the police, you know. I happen to be one of those people. Do you want to see my credentials?
Your credentials look all right to me, baby. We got off the subject, off the roof, and into the problem of getting Brooke Nichols off the end of a rope. After going through those motions, and that gal made all the motions, including retrieving young Frankie from the pokey, I kissed Fate Fabian goodbye, just for luck. And receiving no interest on that investment, we headed back to the airfield. By the time that fireball Egyptian sun had poked its top rim over the leftover GI issue hangars at the east end of the field, the plane was serviced and panning to pry open the sky. Came the time to board ship, came a visitor.
I say, oh, boy. Is Mr. Dollar about?
Yeah, about right here.
Oh, splendid, splendid. I'm Lionel Brooke Nichols.
Congratulations.
I suppose you know you saved my life.
Yeah, with a lot of help, yeah.
Well, I should like to make it up to you somehow. Is there anything I can do?
Well, besides paying my expenses.
Oh, naturally. Send your chit to the Constant Sun Trading Company. You'll be paid post-haste. But beyond that...
Well, could do something for the guy who got me out here. Back in Calcutta, I have an old army buddy named Chaplain Joe Blessings. He runs a church.
Oh, splendid, splendid. Perhaps I could donate a stained glass window or anything you suggest.
Did you say anything?
Yes, anything.
Okay. Well, look, Chaplain Joe Blessings doesn't need a stained glass window because he hasn't got any place to put it. What he does need is a new church. A real one with steeples and all that.
Oh. All right, then. Very well. Done.
Expense account, item 3. Same as original entry. Transportation from the land of the Sphinx to the land of the free by way of Calcutta, where I delivered a happier, though wiser, Frankie. Received the blessings of Chaplain Joe Blessing and ordered a custom-made lightweight pearl-handled blackjack in blue suede and inscribed, "To Fate Fabian," with the hope that you will never fail to supply the black to go with this blue. Love, J.D. Well, I guess that's all. Oh, expense account total. Oh, wait, there's one more. Expense account item 4, $10. Paid to Cassidy's Pawn Shop, Hartford, Connecticut, for purchase of one Hawk Air Medal. After all that flying, I thought I deserved one. Now, expense account total, $5,350.40. If you don't think the founder of your company is worth that, kindly suggest someone who might. Yours, truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, was produced and directed by Gordon T. Hughes and stars Charles Russell, with script by Paul Dudley and Gil Dowd. Featured in the cast were Georgia Ellis, Jack Edwards, Parley Bear, and Paul Dubov. The special music is written and conducted by Leith Stevens. Be sure to be with us again when Johnny Dollar returns to the air after a short vacation. Listen on Saturday, October 1st, when another most unusual expense account is handed in by
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Next week at this time, on many of these same stations, Eve Arden will bring you the madcap adventures of America's favorite schoolmistress, our Miss Brooks. Miss Arden, who has been heard later on Sunday evening for more than a year, is moving to this new time, and CBS cordially invites you to hear her and her famous brand of comedy. To make sure, consult your local newspaper listings next Sunday for the new time, when you'll hear Eve Arden and our Miss Brooks. Now, stay tuned for Your Hit Parade on Parade, which follows immediately over these same CBS network stations. This is Roy Rowan speaking. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Paula, her employer, I believe she said. Something about some work they had to do in the country.
Uh-huh. She leave a forwarding address?
She had little reason to do that. Why, all the time she's been here, the only letters she's gotten is from somebody in Chicago. One a month. A man, I'd say, from the penmanship. Didn't get one this month, though.
Do you, by any chance, remember what those letters said?
Oh, you young upstart. I'm only trying to help.
I know, Mrs. Macy. You're a lovable old gossip. After Mrs. Macy chased me out of her apartment, I questioned some of Michelle's second-floor neighbors. What they gave me only augmented the story I already had. She hadn't been seen in the company of anyone for 4 or 5 months, until Dapper, medium build, and swarthy took over. All of them had seen him None of them knew his name, but they all agreed he was the guy Michelle Marsh had marched away with. Everything I learned added up to a dame getting tired of waiting for somebody in Chicago and ducking out with somebody else. It would have looked that simple if it hadn't been for that detective who had so recently taken up new headquarters in the city morgue. Expense account, item 3, $4.75, drinks and dinner. After which, expense account, item 4, $180, taxi ride. Taken on the strength of the weak clue I found on Michelle's apartment floor. The match folder from Boston's best bar by far, Flannery's. Flannery's look like they wouldn't want to know how old you are, but how many stretches, and in what prisons. Above a row of greasy bottles, the wall behind the bar was covered with pictures of fighters, right from old John L. up to Rocky Graziano. But none of them looked as brutal as the 8 or 10 gorillas who had their feet on the brass rail. I decided this was no place to ask for a lady, so I asked for a drink.
Yeah?
Straight rye. Double.
You've never been in before. Where are you from?
I'm trying to forget. Has, Blackie been around lately?
Who's Blackie?
Well, maybe that's not his full name. It's the one I knew him by. He wore a lot of sharp suits, about medium build, dark, swarthy.
That could be anybody. Now drink your drink, pay for it, and move along.
Now, wait a minute. Now, I haven't got anything against the guy. I'm looking for a dame that's with him, see? What's the freeze for?
I need the room, expecting a private crowd. Now beat it.
I'm off, Flannery.
Oh,
Maybe I want to talk to these guys.
I see that, Flannery.
Yeah, I
look,
told Joe I'd beat him at the...
I'll get closed up again if I get any more trouble this week. Take him outside, Roxy, huh?
Shut up.
What's this Niles name you're looking for?
Michelle Marsh. You know her?
Yeah. Let's go someplace and talk.
Thanks for the invitation, but let go of the arm. You get gangrene when the circulation is cut off.
Sorry. Come on.
What makes you so upset about the lost Michelle?
What do you want with Louis Marine?
Louis Marine? If he's the guy she's with, all I want him to do is to point her out.
You and me might get along at that. It'd be worth plenty to... Look out! Get this rifle! Hey!
The car they were in was different, but those carbines sounded the same. I rubbed my nose raw, trying to bury my head in that sidewalk. I knew they had to empty those carbines sometime, but instead of sounding better, it started to sound worse. I twisted my head, shot a look at the street, saw one of the attackers in the process of falling out of one of the windows of the gun car. Closed my eyes again and realized why they never let my kind of insurance investigator be a policyholder. I'd been sent to find a missing girl, and there I was in the middle of another Boston massacre.
You are listening to Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar, starring Charles Russell.
It took a full 20 seconds after the smoke of battle had started to clear for me to realize that I'd been saved by the arrival of fire support from an unexpected source, the police. I looked around for my new friend and brother target, Roxy, but he had disappeared. A wave of suspicion broke over my flow of thought with this question. How did it happen that all those cops with all those guns just happened to be in all those hiding places waiting for those gunmen to drive up and open up? Answer, a hunter's stew like that usually calls for a pigeon. I didn't feel like flying, but I did, straight back to my hotel, with one landing and a newsstand. An evening paper gave me everything else I needed, except the feathers. But I wasn't exactly cooing when I got to my hotel room phone and put a call through to the Boston police.
South Precinct, Sergeant Miller.
Give me Lieutenant Bill in homicide.
One moment.
This is Dollar, Lieutenant.
Oh, Dollar, sure. I'm glad to hear from you.
I'll have your badge for this.
What did you say?
The evening paper. Quote, Boston private detective, whose name has been withheld by police, was slain today, presumably to stop his search for a missing girl. It was learned by this paper from reliable sources.
Oh, now, Dollar.
That another investigator still alive has joined the hunt for the girl.
Well,
Johnny Dollar, well-known Hartford insurance sleuth, checked into room 705 at the Cartwright Hotel today. Well, you want more?
Why, I can't understand it. I told the boys not to say a word.
I think the boys didn't.
Oh, now, see here. A man would have to stoop pretty low to use methods like that.
You probably touch your toes every morning for practice. Well, I hope you got the results for your stakeout in front of Flannery's. You got 2 hot carbines and a hot car. The evidence that could have talked, those gunmen, are so full of police lead that your only chance of learning anything now is to find somebody strong enough to pick them up and write with them.
Now, wait a minute, Dollar.
You know who hired them?
Well, I'll find out.
When you get confused, check with me. I think I know. Now, do I get the name of that private detective? The deceased?
Well, I don't see any harm. Bernard Knight.
Hired by?
Well, all right, Dollar. If you'll cooperate, I will. According to his files, he was hired by Roxy Morris to find the girl. Now, who hired the gunmen?
I think, but don't know that they were hired by a gent named Louis Marine to stop Roxy Morris from finding Michelle Marsh. Why? We'll have more about that later. But if you'll put a search on that pair of names, I'll look for a good night's sleep. And after that sidewalk, it was easy to find. Hmm? Oh, Boston. Hello. Good morning.
Hello, is this Mr. Dollar?
Wait a minute till I pick you up off the floor. Who is this?
Is this Mr. Dollar?
Yeah, it is.
Well, this is Michelle March.
Huh? Well, good morning, Michelle. I've been looking for you.
That's why I called. I read that you were hired by my insurance company.
Yeah, that's right. They don't like disappearing policyholders.
Well, let me tell you this. If they want to save the money, they'll have to pay for me. Stop looking for me.
What are you afraid of? That Roxy Morris will follow me?
What do you know about Roxy?
They'd like to find you and Louis Marine.
What did he tell you?
Oh, what counts is that I filled in what he didn't tell me. Namely, that he was in Chicago for a year, and you were supposed to be waiting for him in this fatal apartment on Longwood Avenue. But instead, Louis Marine landed, took the situation well in hand, and captured you for himself.
You're just trying this on for size, aren't you?
If it fits, keep it on approval. The point is, there are too many people looking for you to stay lost. Where can I meet you?
How do I know I can trust you? I can't trust anybody.
Look, I'm still working for insurance company, so my greatest interest is keeping you alive, not selling you out.
What about the police?
Well, my promises aren't equipped with lifetime guarantees, but I'll do what I can. If you tell all, and if the story is big enough, they should be willing to make a deal.
It's big, all right. It'll clear something out of their books that's been there for a year.
Where do I meet you?
You know where Charlestown is?
I know it's part of Boston.
Take the subway and get off at City Square. An hour from now. I'll be in a bar. The Gangplank. On Chelsea Street. Near the Navy Yard.
Okay, sweetie. I'll be there. Up until now, whoever's been doing the shooting has used everything but battleships. Even though Michelle's story sounded like trap bait, cheesy indeed, I had to take a chance. I dove into a cab and had the cab dive into the top of Hanover Street and down to Boston's North End. Playing quiz games with strangers in that section is called Take It or Lump It. But a few well-placed 20s led me to a neighborhood undertaker who had the officially unproved reputation of creating a large demand for his own services. We swapped donations. I gave him $50, and he gave me a large out of the corner of his mouthful.
Listen to me good. About a year ago, the laws picked up a Roxy Morris on a suspicion. They had a good idea. He's a heist of the 75G payroll. But There were no witnesses. He didn't leave none. Roxy knew they'd watch him, so he hightailed it out of town. But he didn't detect the loot with him. The boys around here got it back on the grapevine. He was suffering from the shorts. So, everybody figured he had the dough stashed away somewhere right around the heel.
Is that all? Have you got anything else to tell me?
Yeah. Goodbye.
I didn't like the way that undertaker said goodbye. I legged it up to the subway station marked Union, went down in and caught a train for Charlestown. Once at City Square, a 3-block walk down Chelsea Street produced the Gangplank Bar, which in turn produced that nose-bruising smell which comes from slopping beer on sawdust. Out of place in the place sat Michelle Marsh. She was a good looker, with a bad look. And if I had been Roxy Morris, I would have elected her the last national bank. I flopped into a booth beside her. She turned her head my way, looked me straight in the kisser, blew a smoke ring at me, and popped 2 words through it.
You Dollar?
Yep, I'm Dollar. You March?
I'm Michelle Marsh.
Well, so far so good. It's nice hearing you breathe. That means Tri-State Insurance can keep its nice $25,000.
Only if you keep me this way, Mr. Dollar. And that might prove to be a difficult thing to do.
Oh, maybe not so difficult.
Why not?
Well, you indicated yourself that your magnetic personality might suddenly attract a few steel jacket bullets. That means there'll have to be somebody to pull the trigger. So all I have to do is to sit around and see who tries to take a shot at the target. You. And we've got our man.
It's not that easy. I'm in trouble 3 ways. And it's hard to see 3 ways at once.
Look, I know all about Roxy Morris. He swiped $75,000 and gave it to you to mine.
You don't know the half of it. 2 months after Roxy was gone, a guy named Louis Marine came to me with a story that Roxy had sent for $20,000. I gave it to him. Then he told me that Roxy had never sent for it. And that if I squawked, he'd convince Roxy that I'd fallen in love with him and just given him the money. He did that or he'd tip off the police. He had me going and coming.
Nice fellow.
He wouldn't leave me alone. He made me give him $15,000 more of Roxy's money. And 2 weeks ago, I got word through to Roxy in Chicago. He blew up. Turned on me. I've been running from him ever since. He wants his $75,000, all of it. And I haven't got it.
Oh, seems like you've been taking chances all the way. Now, you know what I want you to do?
No, what?
Take one more. I told Michelle what I had in mind for her, during the next few hours at least, and grabbed a cab back across the bridge into the North End. Expense account item 5, $50. Another donation to my expensive undertaker. This time I paid him for talking, but not to me. Then I took over the telephone and dialed my way through to the guy to whom I was about to give a chance of becoming the ding-dong daddy of the Boston Police Force, Lieutenant Bell.
Yes, Dollar, this is Lieutenant Bell.
Bell, how would you like to get the goods on Roxy Morris?
I'd like it fine.
Okay. And along with that, how'd you like to pin a receiving stolen property rap on Louis Marine?
I hope you aren't just being salty, Dollar.
I'm not, Lieutenant. Now, look, you may have to do some trading with the gal on this deal.
Yeah?
You may have to promise her some time off for verbal good behavior.
Well, such things are possible. All right, what's the pitch?
Listen, I have baited a tall, thin granite trap for Roxy Morris and Louis Marine. The bait is Roxy's ex-girlfriend, Michelle March.
Okay, what then?
I had a tipster call Roxy Morris and tell him that Louis Marine was meeting Michelle at a certain place at 3 o'clock this afternoon.
Yeah.
I also had Mr. Blabbermouth call Louis Marine and tell him that Michelle is meeting Roxy at the same time and the same place.
What?
I had him tell each of the gentlemen that Michelle was meeting the other one with what's left of the money in cash.
Oh, you've started a war, Dollar. But if it does the trick, it's worth it. All right. What's my move?
First, call the place where I've arranged a surprise party and tell them to get rid of the public. Also tell them to let a girl named Michelle March come and go as she pleases. Also me.
Oh, don't tell me you've set this thing up in a public place. Where is it?
Lieutenant Bell, what I want is for those 2 characters to run up a blind alley. And when I say up, oh, brother, they got the word the Michelle meeting would be held at the top of the Bunker Hill Monument.
Oh, no.
And you might remember what General Prescott almost said. Don't fire till you see the red in their eyes. I was back in Charlestown and at the base of the Bunker Hill Monument at 2:45. The door of the museum at the bottom was open, but a state park officer stood by its side. I told him who I was, and he nodded me through the bronze doors. Officer, did Miss March get here?
Yes, sir, young man. She went up the shaft.
Oh, well, look, can I run the elevator myself?
There isn't any elevator. Just steps 200 to 300.
Oh. Ow, this may be going to heaven the hard way, but here goes. Halfway up the winding granite stairs, I yelled for Michelle. But she either didn't hear me or just didn't want to answer. I kept going and hoping. As I came closer to the top, I tried yelling again. Still no answer. Finally, I made it. Up into the observation landing at the top. Michelle was there. She still wouldn't talk, but she had written me a note. Beside her crumpled figure was a vial that hadn't been filled with perfume. The note was short and to the point. Dear Johnny Dollar, I still want to help, but I hadn't better be around here alive when everybody gets here. And it was signed Michelle. As I've been over to see what kind of bye-bye medicine she'd taken, I heard something that might mean a sudden dose of lead to the head for me. Either Morris or Marine had landed, and there I was stuck at the top with a bait that had suckered them into a trap, which suddenly turned out to be mine. Waiting up there in that tiny room for death to come get me would have killed me anyway, so I started down. Over the pounding of my heart and my own steps on the granite blocks, I heard the pitter-patter of anything but tiny feet come charging up a narrow staircase. Whoever was coming up and I both slowed down, but my heart didn't. And I crept around a curve, and my eyes went into a head-on collision with a pair staring back.
What are you doing here?
I'm a tourist, Roxy.
Maybe right, white guy. You may be taking a trip. Who's up there?
Up there? Oh, I don't know who they are. Just some girl with a guy. She keeps calling Louie.
Okay. Let me by. Easy now. Don't try anything.
Roxy Morris tagged me with the butt of a .32 going by. But lying there with my head against the cold granite inside wall of the monument brought me back. And conscious was a very dangerous condition for me to be in, because charging up the stairs came another pair of unfriendly feet that couldn't have belonged to anybody but Louis Marine.
Who are you? What are you doing here?
Well, up until somebody hit me on the head, I was tailing Roxy Morris and his girl.
They're up there?
Sure, Louis. Yeah, they're up there.
Then let me by. Come on. Get up out of my way.
Okay. Go ahead, by.
Yeah. But wait a minute. I got an idea. Come on, chum. Ahead of me. Up you go. You can affront for me. Move!
Louis had a gun at my back, and Roxy had one waiting for me up front. We took the last few steps up to the top real quiet-like. When my eyes came level to the floor of the observation room, Roxy was bending over Michelle, but he snapped up in a hurry, and his right hand was loaded with heat. Louis pushed me ahead of him, up and in. I stood there between them, listening to them grind their teeth at each other, with one foot under Michelle's arm. Then I got two big shocks. A scream from Michelle just before she snatched my legs out from under me. Hey, what are you doing alive?
I don't know. I guess I didn't take enough.
Well, whatever you're doing alive, I'll tell you one thing. Your two boyfriends sure took care of each other. Come on. Let me get you out of here. Oh. I didn't think I'd be able to carry me down all those stairs. Now I have to carry you. Expense account, item 6, $20. City hospital. Having Michelle's stomach pumped out. And the way Michelle took my suggestion that she voluntarily turn herself over to the police was very good. Lieutenant Bell was very cooperative. Otherwise, I might let it be known that the reason that he didn't show up on time to help me in the 1949 Battle of Bunker Hill was because he forgot to reset his watch at the end of daylight saving time. He showed up for our 3 o'clock appointment at 4. Expense account total, $786.00. Signed, yours, truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is produced and directed by Gordon T. Hughes and stars Charles Russell with script by Paul Dudley and Gil Dowd. Featured in the cast were Bill Boucher, Myra Marsh, Dick Ryan, Larry Dobkin, Charles Seal, and Dorothy Lovett. The special music is written and conducted by Leith Stevens. Be sure to be with us next Saturday, October 1st, when another unusual expense account is handed in by
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
That's right. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, will be heard on Saturday evenings starting next Saturday. And look at who's going to be here at the same time on Sundays. The world's most famous blockhead, Charlie McCarthy, accompanied by a man who shadows him closely as Johnny shadows the suspect, Edgar Bergen. Yes, Charlie McCarthy and Edgar Bergen have joined the great parade of stars to CBS, along with Jack Benny, Amos and Andy, Horace Heidt, and Red Skelton, whose show starts next Saturday, or rather next Sunday also. Don't miss the first hilarious appearance of Charlie and Bergen on most of these same CBS stations at the same time next Sunday night and every Sunday thereafter. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
This you can really call a fish story. And I was the live bait.
This is another in the adventures of America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator, Johnny Dollar. At insurance investigation, Johnny Dollar is only an expert. At making out his expense account, he's an absolute genius.
Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Intercontinental Marine Insurance Company, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of my expenditures during assignment in San Pedro, California, investigating the loss of 2 pieces of property insured by you. Or the tuna were running and so was everybody else. Or I caught a fishing boat, but you should have seen the one that got away. Expense account item 1, $176.87. Airfare from home base in Hartford to off base in California. Expense account item 2, $10. Cab fare, Los Angeles Municipal Airport to the waterfront office of the Pacific Deep Sea Canning Company in San Pedro. There was perfume in the air. Channel number 5. Inside, the name on the door said Walton. That's who I wanted to see, so I walked in.
Well, who are you?
I'm here to follow up the claim you made to Intercontinental Marine Insurance Company. My name is Johnny Dollar.
Oh, when you bring the money, I need boats. The tuna are running.
No, Mr. Walton, I didn't bring any money. All I brought is a suspicious nature and an inquisitive mind.
What the devil do you mean by that crack?
Now, don't get your fish in a stew, Mr. Walton. This is standard procedure. No insurance company is going to shell out $400,000 without first taking a long, lingering look.
Well, there's not much to look at.
Yeah, so I understand. According to your claim, 2 of your boats, the Frank Walton and the Nancy Walton, left port Monday afternoon and headed out on a southerly course. When you tried to establish radio contact Tuesday morning, you couldn't raise them. Pieces of wreckage and the bodies of 2 men were found Tuesday night, indicating that both boats were lost.
That's the story.
What made you so sure that both boats went down?
Because of those 2 men whose bodies were found, one sailed in the Nancy Walton, the other sailed in the Frank Walton. What more do you people want?
Just enough time to check everything thoroughly. You know, this wouldn't be the first time a shipwreck has been faked to collect insurance.
I see what you mean.
Yeah, I guess the faster I get you satisfied, the faster I'll collect my money. Sorry I lost my temper, Dollar. I'll do everything I can. Send Captain Carpo in. Carpo's my fleet captain, Dollar. He can give you all the details. But I'm telling you, there aren't any more.
Well, one thing for sure, Mr. Walton. We can't blame it on the Pacific Ocean. According to my report, those boats sailed in fine weather.
That's right.
You call me, boss?
Yes, George, this is Mr. Dollar from the insurance company. He's here to investigate the sinking.
So?
I'm happy to meet you, too, Captain.
What do you want?
First, I want your theory as to what could have happened.
I don't know. I wasn't there. Maybe they run into each other.
As fleet captain, you hire the hands for the boats, don't you?
That's right.
Are you the kind of man that would hire the kind of skippers that run into each other in clear weather?
They were good skippers. Now you listen to me. I've been captain of this fleet for 5 years. It's the first time we ever lose a boat or lose a man. You think we like this idea?
No, I don't, Captain Carpo. I don't think you like it any better than the insurance company likes the idea of losing $400,000. Well, at least if I find those sunken boats, that'll be salvage.
No, Mr. Dollar. That'll be miracle.
The meeting busted up without me getting busted up, which was unusual in itself. And I hitched myself a ride out to an outfit who knows more about salt water than a Coney Island taffy maker. The U.S. Coast Guard. Enclosed find the statement of the commander of the station, Lieutenant Senior Grade Miles P. Endicott, Jr.
We've made thorough patrols using both air and surface craft. The bodies of the men recovered show signs that lead us to believe that they were blown clear of the lost ships by violent explosions.
All the lieutenant needed to say to make my eyes light up was that one word, explosion. Because in a marine insurance investigator's book, the word explosion sets off another word, scuttling, a widely used wet variety of fraud. In other words, blowing up your own ship to collect the insurance. And continuing this chain reaction, I followed the best available lead, the man in charge of the vessels involved, Captain George Carpo. I found him at 11 that night at a combination restaurant and bar named after the oriental fishing bird, the cormorant. As I looked in through the greasy window, an interesting sight greeted me. Captain Carpo slipping into a booth already occupied by an olive-skinned brunette who was good enough looking, but obviously less than a queen. Carpo stuck his face in hers, spat a few words at her that I couldn't hear, shook his sledgehammer fist at her, and stomped out through her back door. I gave the front door some business, and, trying to look like I belonged to the place, strolled to the bar, bought myself a blast, and walked it over to the ladies' booth.
Well, who sent for you?
Do you mind?
I haven't got anything to lose if you haven't.
What do you mean by that?
If those are your own teeth, maybe you don't want to lose them.
Oh, Carpo's a jealous type, huh?
You don't believe in sharing the wealth.
Are you Carpo's girl?
Part-time. Who are you?
Well, if Captain Carpo comes back, he'll tell you anyway. So the name is Dollar, Johnny Dollar. I'm an insurance investigator.
Investigating what? Marine life?
Marine death. Those two sinkings in the Walton fleet. The company that sent me here insured the boats.
Sounds to me like you got yourself a tough job.
Why?
Oh, I don't know. Who are you going to ask questions? They've been reported with all hands lost.
Who knows? Maybe I'll bump into a talkative seagull. Or maybe, if I'm lucky, a talkative girl.
What have you got that could make a girl talkative, mister?
Well, discounting my natural beauty and charm, I have money. Not too much money, but money.
Keep coming. I know enough not to talk before I give what I want.
Well, that makes it a Mexican standoff. I know enough not to pay for something I haven't heard yet. Let's start out with an inexpensive question, like, what's your name?
You can have that for free. Anita Vargas.
How long you known Carpo?
If you'll pardon the expression, on and off for the last 6 months.
How's he for money? Has he turned into a big spender recently?
Sure. Instead of 2 drinks a night, he's now buying me 4. Carpo will never be a big spender.
Where does he live?
1423 Parade Street.
How far is that from here?
It's here. He lives upstairs.
That called for a change of scene. I didn't know whether Anita Varghese really had anything to sell or not, but I didn't want what was left of our tete-a-tete to be interrupted by a violent rearrival of the mighty Captain Carpo. So, expense account item 3, $4, picking up our tabs. Item 4, 6 bits, picking up a taxi, which dropped us at another bar, slightly less oriental, but definitely more obnoxious. We grabbed ourselves a table with a view of the sawdust on the floor, and waited for a waiter. He didn't come, but somebody else did. The owner of the lost fishing boats, Mr. Roscoe Walton.
What are you doing with this character, Anita?
I met him in college, Roscoe. Now beat it. And since when have you been getting drunk?
Don't tell me he's your boyfriend, too.
Uh-huh, part-time.
Maybe I'd better get lost. I'll call you later.
Yeah, maybe you better get lost. And stay that way.
Go ahead, Johnny. You better go.
Well, happy hangover, Mr. Walton.
You don't look like no college boy to me.
I was no professor of mathematics either, but I could add this much up. If those tuna clippers had gone down by explosion, somebody had to buy some explosives. Maybe locally. That problem I took to the local police, who went to work looking up names in the dynamite register. And since those explosives would have been planted while the boats were under the care and supervision of Captain Carpo, that problem I decided to take to him. It was 1:30 in the morning when I got back to the front of the Cormorant restaurant and bar. The grease joint was dark, but a light was burning on the second and top floor. I got halfway up the front stairs to ask my leading suspect a few questions about explosions when I heard something. Carpo was still moving when I got up there, but not for long. The back door was as open as the captain's life was closed. I looked down the back flight of stairs. It was either too dark or there wasn't anybody there, and I wasn't going down to look. I'd been over the body just to make sure. Oh. First they beat him half to death. I wonder why they didn't finish him that way. Huh?
Well, sir, perhaps it would be best if you were to remain where you are. At least my pistol seems to recommend it. Well, you seem to have done inestimable damage to my good friend Captain Carpo. The poor fellow seems to be definitely dead.
In just a moment, we will return to the second act of Johnny Dollar. But first, you might be interested to know that CBS has acquired a couple of blocks of wood. You're not interested? Well, would you be interested if you knew that those blocks of wood had been carved into certain figures? No. Well, then let's try this. Would you be interested if you knew that those carved blocks of wood could talk? Ah, now you're beginning to sit up and take notice. Well, we might as well come out and tell you that these talking blocks of wood are named Charlie McCarthy and Mortimer Snurd, that they and a lively fellow named Edgar Bergen will be making their first appearance over most of these same CBS stations this Sunday evening, and that you'll be able to hear them every Sunday thereafter. Now, with our star Charles Russell, we return to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
There I was again. Always the suspect, but never the tried. With a dead body at my feet and a pistol at my head. The man holding it was neither small nor large. Thomas Mitchell type. His frame was fighting the seams of a sloppy tweed suit, and his pouchy face was fighting the alcoholic content of his blood.
Well, sir, what do you have to say for yourself?
Oh, don't be ridiculous. I came to talk to this man. Killing him would hardly be the way to kick off a conversation. How about you? What are you doing here at 1:30 in the morning?
Most amusing, most. Two accused men, each of them judging the other. Ha ha! With a dead man for a jury. All right, then. As for my testimony, my name is Cricket. I was on my way to discuss with the good Captain Carpo a matter of possible mutual profit. Naturally, when I heard the shots from the street, I hastened to his assistance.
I won't ask you how you knew Carpo was getting shot instead of doing the shooting. My name is Dollar. I'm an insurance investigator from Hartford, Connecticut. I was sent out here to look into 2 sinkings in the captain's fleet.
Oh, then you and I share a common interest. My business is ship salvage. It's obvious that I should put up this pistol and replace it with a shake of a hand. How do you do, sir?
In my business, you never know. How do you do?
This is indeed a most fortunate meeting. A pity that it should take place upon the very threshold of tragedy. Poor Carpo. His face seems to have enjoyed the worst of an encounter with a monkey's fist.
How's that?
A monkey's fist.
I mean, what's that?
Well, a monkey's fist, sir, is a highly complicated knot woven about a slug of lead to lend weight. Ordinarily, it is intended for use at the end of a heaving line. However, it is sometimes used by seamen in the forecastle in the administering of torturous beatings. Now, what do you make of that?
Well, if we can take the word of the centuries for it, torture suggests the violent seeking of information.
That would indeed seem to be the case.
From the looks of this room, a monkey's fist or any other kind of knot wouldn't be hard to lay your hands on. What's that one on the wall there?
Oh, that is a miniature of a knotted ship's fender.
Fender?
It's a device for cushioning the shock between a ship and a wharf or another vessel. In modern sailing, this type has largely been replaced by the commercial cork variety. Oh, somebody evidently heard the shots and notified the police. Awkward.
Look, Mr. Cricket.
Yeah?
I feel like talking, but not to the police.
Splendid. Perhaps then you would be kind enough to join me in a nightcap at my quarters?
Lead me to it. Mr. Cricket's quarters turned out to be afloat and moored to a dock. It was a PT boat, ex-Navy.
Sit down. Make yourself comfortable.
Thanks.
Now, first, that nightcap. Yo-ho-ho, sir, and a bottle of rum. And now, if you'll do the honors...
Delighted.
I will invite the London Symphony to play behind our chair. Tchaikovsky, the Pathétique. Oh, utterly beautiful.
Wow. Sweet phonograph records, soft lights, and hard liquor. This is the kind of stuff I enjoy on my time off, which this doesn't happen to be.
There we are. Now to business. Mr. Dollar, I assume that the insurance company that sent you out here is not satisfied with the story of the sinking of the 2 vessels, Frank and Nancy Walton. I assume further that you have been authorized to spend any necessary monies to not only view the evidence firsthand, but also, if that evidence proves a criminal intent, to be able to retrieve it from the ocean floor for use in court. Are my assumptions correct?
They are. But it can't be as simple as you make it sound. The first job seems to me the toughest, finding the spot where those clippers went down.
I would venture to say that with my special equipment, I could detect the presence of the fillings in Davy Jones' teeth. It is fantastic, sir.
And about your price, is that fantastic, too?
My proposition is this. A flat price of $5,000. And, in the event that criminal intent is proved, the possession of the recovered hulks.
I assume this $5,000 is only payable if you succeed in locating the boats.
Let us substitute the term returnable for the word payable. I will need $5,000 in advance, and our contract shall state that in the unlikely event of failure, you shall get your money back less my necessary expenses. Agreed?
Agreed. I'll have your money for you in the morning.
Good. I trust I shall have your boats for you in the afternoon.
I couldn't tell yet about his fantastic sonic sounding device, but otherwise, Mr. Cricket was well equipped. By ship-to-shore telephone, he ordered me a taxi, which I ordered to a corner near Roscoe Walton's Pacific Deep Sea Canning Company. Carpo's death made me want to get a good look at Carpo's office. Something about the way he died kept baiting up the thought that there was something fishier about this case than just plain old-fashioned insurance fraud. The only thing that was out of place in the place was under a rug, under Carpo's desk, a wall safe sunk in the floor. That proved easier to open than a poker hand with 3 aces. I lifted the heavy steel door. The first thing I saw was an oblong package, brown paper. I stuck one hand in to lift it out, and I couldn't. So I used two, and my back was as heavy as lead. But when I tore off the wrapping, I saw that it was as valuable as gold, because that's what it was, a gold ingot. I didn't even have time to wonder because the subject suddenly changed from lead to gold to cold steel in his voice and in his hand.
Hold it there.
Hey, Mr. Dollar.
It's a little late to be canning fish, isn't it, Walton?
Yes, it seems to be just right for breaking and entering. What are you doing here?
Entering the last phase of this investigation, Walton, and breaking the back of your little racket. Or I should say big.
What do you mean, racket?
To me, it looks like your boats have been bringing in more than fish from the Mexican coast. This heavy little handful makes it look like they've been hauling in Mexican gold.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not going to stand here and be accused.
You're so right you're not going to stand there. Not on those feet. Ah! Give me that. You and take this.
Johnny, are you hurt?
Are you kidding? You'll never make a living being a fight referee. I'm what is commonly known as the winner.
Johnny, do you really believe what you said is true?
What about smuggling in Mexican gold?
Yeah.
Listen, Anita. When you find a private citizen with a gold ingot, he is not using it for a watch fob. The only thing I learned after that was that 2 hours in the sack does not constitute a good night's sleep. By 10 in the morning, one phone call east and one telegram west delivered $5,000 into my hands from a local bank. And I, after a quick call to the Coast Guard to cover a few final details, placed myself into the hands of Mr. Cricket, deep sea guide extraordinary. 2 jolting hours later, our bucking bronco with a briny had us crashing to the swell somewhere off the island of San Clemente, which is somewhere some 60 miles off the coast of Southern California.
Well, Dollar, my boy, enjoying the voyage?
Yeah.
Oh, come now. This isn't what a sailor would call rough weather, you understand?
I understand. I only hope my breakfast does.
Oh, this is nothing. Why, I recall one time off the Spanish coast.
Mr. Cricket!
Yes, my man?
According to my reading, we're about there.
Good, good. Reduce your RPM. Now, Dollar. Now, prepare to be amazed.
Mr. Cricket had good reason to chirp about one thing. He sure knew his business. An hour later, the hoax had been located. We were riding on a mushroom anchor. A diver had been put over the side and was tug-of-war topside by a cable on a winch.
All right, careful now. Okay, clear the rail. Easy does it. Far away. He's aboard. Give him slack.
Quickly now, get his helmet off. Now, Dollar, we shall see.
For $5,000, I'm going to have to see.
Well, Riley, what luck?
We hit it right on the nose. They're both down there 30 yards apart.
Well, Dollar, are you satisfied?
Just about 90%, Mr. Cricket.
Oh, and the 10%?
Oh, look, it's this way, Mr. Cricket. If this case gets any place, I'll probably have to testify in court. So far, everything I've got is secondhand. That isn't worth much in court. I've got to see those boats.
What? Well, good heavens, man. You mean you want to go over the side?
I don't particularly want to, but it seems to be part of this job. Many times before in my career, I've thought I had a heavy weight on my shoulders. But that diver's helmet set the new record. And those lead shoes and that rubberized canvas suit didn't feel exactly zoot. The temperature of the water outside felt much cooler than that forming on my brows. This was a steam bath, airtight. 8 days later, in my mind at least, my lead wedgies groped for a foothold on a slimy bottom, and I had arrived shipside. As I had no immediate way of determining the sex of a sunken ship, I couldn't tell from abaft the beam whether I was looking at the Frank or the Nancy Walton. About then, a passing current grabbed me and invited me out to dance along the ocean floor. I grabbed out for anything for support, and it turned out to be a rope hanging from the clipper's gunnel.
Well, Dollar,
When the drift passed on a huff, I had a chance to take a closer look at what I was hanging on to. The line was secured to a woven rope ship's fender, which Mr. Cricket had not so long before told me was fashioned about a buoyant core of cork. But this one felt heavy enough to be loaded with county cork. And as for buoyancy, this was about as buoyant as a lead balloon. It was resting on the bottom and heavy to lift. The next current that swept over me was mental. I clawed the shark knife out of the diving suit belt, started hacking at the woven rope, then threw a thin layer of canvas. And that's as far as I got.
Dollar, is this phone system operating? Here now, Dollar. Are you there?
This ain't the three little fishies.
Oh, good. Have you seen the ships?
Yeah, they're here all right.
Are you satisfied that they were sunk by explosion?
Yep. They're blasted in all directions.
Then I have earned my $5,000, and I must bid you farewell.
What? What are you talking about?
Oh, you have been all but lost in a diving accident.
Oh, yourself. What'll that get you?
In disposing of you, sir, I am confident that as well as pocketing your $5,000, I will also do away with the meddling of the insurance company. You see, when my diver comes down to recover your unfortunate body, he will continue our search for the gold.
Oh, well, I've got news for you, pal. You evidently didn't knock the hiding place out of Carpo before you killed him. But I was lucky. Not only have I already found that gold, I have stashed it.
Here now, Dollar, you're bluffing.
If you think so, turn off my air.
So you do know about it. Dollar, tell me honestly, are you open to terms?
Well, I'll think about it. Haul away! The trip up was slower than the trip down, which was luck for me. The first thing I heard when I broke through the surface was muffled by the helmet, but unmistakably gunfire. The Marines hadn't landed, but by George, the Coast Guard certainly had, and I had a grandstand seat for the whole affair. My winchman was busy ducking bullets, and the winch just didn't decide to stop on its own hook. So I went riding skyward until I was stopped by the tip of the boom. And there I was, hanging on its own hook, suspended over the deck, looking through my helmet glass at the raging battle below. Cricket, directly below me, was pumping a high-powered rifle, and between shots, shouting curses at whoever had opened fire on the U.S. government. Lieutenant Senior Grade, Miles P. Endicott Jr. stood silhouetted against the sky on the flying bridge of the Coast Guard cutter. I looked down 20 feet between my dangling lead-weighted feet and saw Cricket taking careful aim in his direction. So once again, I grabbed my razor-edged shark knife, stuck it under the copper rim of my breastplate, and ripped at the canvas. And bombs away! My weight did the rest. Expense account, item 5. Cab fare to the San Pedro Police Headquarters, where I made my statements and heard Mr. Crickett's. A badly damaged Mr. Cricket.
Well, sir, during a short stay in Cleveland, it was brought to my attention that every city in the country was suffering an epidemic of small-time gold robberies. Dentist offices, pawn shops, and so forth. Such a condition piqued my curiosity. Yes. Well, there's my love for money. And I studied the situation more closely. To my amazement, I learned that the gold was being melted down, fashioned into ingots, and sent off somewhere to the Orient for use in the gold and gun smuggling traffic. It occurred to me that if I could intercept the gold immediately after its dispatch, under the guidance of Captain Coppo, to a larger ship, being met at sea by his tuna clippers, then I could realize for myself a tidy profit.
Expense account, item 6. $7.50. 5-pound box of chocolates for Miss Anita Varghese. Address, San Pedro Municipal Jail. It seems that the police sometimes classify a part-time girlfriend as an all-time accomplice. Expense account item 7, airfare, Los Angeles to Hartford, $176.87. And being Friday, what do you think they serve for dinner on the plane? What else? Tuna fish salad. Expense account total, $1,264.28. Yours, truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is produced and directed by Gordon T. Hughes and stars Charles Russell. Script by Paul Dudley and Gil Dowd. Featured in the cast were Willard Waterman, Junius Matthews, Edmund McDonald, Georgia Ellis, Larry Dobkin, and Paul Dubois. The special music is written and conducted by Wilbur Hatch. Be sure and be with us at this same time next week when another unusual expense account is handed in by
yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Every fall, the ladies like to go out and get some new fall clothes. Well, CBS has gone out and gotten some new fall shows. One of the gayest of these new programs is the Red Skelton Show, which makes its bow over most of these same CBS stations this Sunday night. There's no one quite like Red Skelton, as you'll find out when you tune in tomorrow. The Red Skelton Show is a part of the CBS Great Sunday Night Laugh lineup. Don't miss it. Now stay tuned for Vaughn Monroe, who follows immediately over most of these same CBS stations. Paul Masterson speaking. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
This is a horse on me. But I did find out that in a race for life and death, the police laboratory is where they make the photo finish.
This is another in the adventures of America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator, Johnny Dollar. At Insurance Investigation, Johnny Dollar is only an expert. At making out his expense account, he is an absolute genius.
Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Hartford Branch, Lloyd's Underwriters Association. The following is an accounting of my expenditures during investigation of the circumstances threatening the life of the insured, the racehorse Piledriver. Or, he'd have been way off his feet if I didn't know my oats. Or, it's great to get a kick out of life so long as it isn't a kick in the head. Expense account item 1, 18 cents, 1 package of cigarettes. You may consider this a personal item, but that's where this case really started. At the cigar stand, ground floor, terminal office building, here in Hartford. I'd come down in one of the elevators and noticed a little guy with a cane standing with a starter. After I passed them, I felt myself being pointed out. And not being the type who likes being followed for long periods of time, I gave myself a good reason to stop and look things over.
Hello, Mr. Dollar.
Hiya, Mac. Give me a pack of Luckies, will you?
I just sold you a pack when you came in.
I know. But things may really start smoking any minute. Here.
Good morning to you, sir. I've been led to believe that you were one Mr. John Dollar. Would that be a fact?
Yeah. I'm Dollar. What can I do for you?
Well, I am quite a famous fellow myself. Perhaps you've heard of the fabulous jockey Earl Sand?
Yeah, but...
Well, next to him, I was among the best. May I introduce myself? I'm the famous little Nettie Montana, sometimes called the short Johnny Longden. Shake hands.
Oh, how do you do?
Now, to business. I think I have a way for you to solve my problem and make yourself an honest buck besides.
Oh, now, whoa, pony boy. You're wasting your time. I don't bet the horses, and when I do, I don't buy tips from touts.
Oh, now, wait a minute, pal. I did not introduce myself for the purpose of being insulted. I will have you know that I, too, do not consort with touts. I will thank you to keep a civil tongue in your head.
Oh, I can see this is going to be one of those days. What is your problem, mister?
Well, it is a problem best not overheard by people in the lobbies of office buildings. But this much I can tell you. It is about a horse and $50,000 insurance. That is why I came to you.
Well, I'd be richer if I'd known more about horses, and poorer if I'd known less about insurance. Maybe in this thing I can break even at least. Come on. I hope you are not too much of a purist to ride in a taxi. Little Nettie looked like he'd stopped growing physically at the age of 14. And every once in a while he talked like his mind had also called it quits at about the same time. The only thing slick about him was his hair. The only thing sharp, his clothes. Liars always talk too much, and little Nettie wouldn't say a word until we were inside my apartment. So even before he started his pitch, I half believed it.
Well, to take it from the beginning, I was born in a stable, and that's not just a figure of speech. They brought the hot water in a feed bucket, so you can understand my deep affection for horses.
Yeah.
Now, on top of that, kindly consider this. One horse in particular, a very brave steed by the name of Piledriver, has not only made me very famous, but has also made me a very large pile of hay. I have ridden Piledriver to a win position since he was a maiden.
Piledriver, huh? Quite a hunk of horse.
Aha. You remember?
Yeah.
Then you might also remember that he was on his way to becoming one of the big money winners of all time. Until I had to go and fall off a livery stable horse while teaching a girl how to ride in Central Park. It busted up my leg, and I might add, my future. To say nothing of Piledrivers. He hasn't won a race since I got grounded.
Yeah, well, what's all this got to do with insurance?
Mr. Dollar, they are going to murder him.
Oh?
Can you guess why?
I can try. Piledriver is heavily insured. He's also no longer winning races.
He is also a man who can't have a family. No good for studs.
So if Piledriver should trip and break a leg, the owner would be entitled to shoot him, and he'd still collect the insurance. I know, it's been done.
You have hit the horseshoe nail on the head. Mr. Dollar, I have a considerable bundle of money stashed away, and I am willing to devote a considerable lump of it to the purpose of saving Piledriver. Now, maybe you wouldn't understand such a thing, but I happen to love that horse.
I understand it, Nettie. Where is he?
Well, he is currently stabled at a track named Hiawatha.
Oh, by the shores of Gitchigumi?
No, by the shores of Lake Michigan. This is located slightly north of a place called Chicago.
5 telephone calls and a few hundred questions later, I learned that Piledriver was insured by your company. Got the assignment and was on my way. So, expense account item 2, airfare, Hartford to Chicago, $57.72. Little Nettie insisted on coming along, and he kept the hum of the plane from being humdrum as follows.
Well, Johnny, the gentleman who owns Piledriver is an old Kentucky mint julep sponge named Colonel Faraday Bushnell.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this character has a very black heart hiding beneath a head of white hair.
I see.
I trusted him until I heard him say what he was going to do. From then on, I have been seriously tempted to wrap these hands around his neck and squeeze. All I can say is he had better not hurt Piledriver.
Expense account item 3, $16.40. Cab fare, Chicago Municipal Airport to Hiawatha Racetrack. Arrival time, 10 a.m. To me, a racetrack always smells good. Of horses, green grass, and excitement. Here you are, driver. Keep the change.
Well, this, as the saying goes, is it, Mr. Dollar. You'll have to take it from here.
Okay.
Oh, hey, one last word of warning. Watch out for his daughter, Lila.
Well, why? Is she dangerous?
To a guy like me? No. But to a guy like you, yes.
Pardon me, miss. Can you tell me where I'll find the boss around here, Colonel Bushnell?
Oh. I was just going to chase you away. But you don't look like just another hay and grain merchant. What you selling?
I'm not. I'm buying. Where's your daddy?
How do you know the Colonel is my daddy?
Well, he told me he had a pretty daughter.
Oh, well, thanks. Just who are you, mister?
Well, as for the name, that's Johnny Dollar. As for my business, that's trying to buy one of your father's horses.
Well, the Colonel won't be back for a little bit, but I'm bossing while he's away. I'll tell you now, I don't think he's figuring on selling any of his horses. But I'll be glad to show them to you.
Good enough. But there's only one I'm really interested in. Piledriver.
Piledriver? Why, no, Daddy wouldn't sell him.
Why not?
Why, he's practically one of the family. He put me through the last 2 years of college.
Do you mind if I see him anyway?
Why, no, not at all. Right over here.
Okay.
Here, baby. You have company, darling. Meet Mr. Dollar.
Hello. That's quite a horse.
No, he's just a perfect dear, aren't you, darling? Mr. Dollar, why do you want to buy Piledriver?
Oh, he's a great horse. Got a great record.
Have you been following him lately?
Yeah. Oh, I know he hasn't been winning. That ought to make his price cheap and the odds long when he gets back running. I just happen to think I can make a winner out of him again.
But his spirit's all gone. How do you think you're going to do that?
Well, if I told you, his price might go right back up.
Johnny, darling, I can't help it, darling.
Hey,
Kiss
wait a
me.
minute. Let go. Wait a minute.
Please, darling, please.
Well, it was great fun. But what was it for?
Johnny, you shouldn't have, right out here in the open. Oh, Leo.
Yeah. What's going on?
Now, wait, Leo, honey.
This guy ain't your brother. He'll wish he was. Besides, that's no way to kiss brothers. You, get out of here.
Look, Buster, if you aren't this girl's father, you'd better start doing some wishing.
Oh, you think so, huh?
This is the roughest game of post office I ever got mixed up in.
Like that, please.
Johnny! Johnny, what are you doing to him?
Hammerheads like this hammerlocks. Let him get tough now and I'll bust his arm.
Gentlemen, what's going on here? You spectators there, run along now about your business. Leo, I must say I am surprised at you. Fighting in front of a lady.
Dad.
Get him off of me.
Here, young man, I demand that you dismount, Mr. Colby.
Well, sooner or later, I guess I'll have to. Now, listen, Leo, are you paying close attention?
Yeah.
After I let you up, if you make one move except away from here, I'll give you a pair of fat ears, okay? Oh, look at the suit. I'm going to have to start wearing knee pads.
Come on, Leo, honey. Let's get away from here. I hope you're not blaming me for what happened.
I don't know
was
who to
just
blame.
standing here.
Now, see here. I demand an explanation.
So do I. I came here to get in the horse business, and I end up in the fight racket. Who is that guy?
That gentleman, sir, is Leo Corbett, a brother horse owner. And I might do the favor of warning you that Mr. Corbett is a hard enough man in business dealings. But when it comes to my daughter, he's downright violent.
Your daughter was downright impulsive.
Maybe so. But Leo is hardly the type to stand by while some other fellow kisses his girl. And I saw that happen with my own eyes.
Well, don't let it worry you, Colonel. I didn't come here to collect lipstick samples. Well, there's one thing I can be glad about in my encounter with Mr. Leo Corbett.
What is that?
That he isn't James J. Come on, Colonel. Let's talk business. Hey, bartender.
Hey, Mr. Dollar, over here.
Oh, never mind. There's my man over there. How are you, Ninny?
Oh, I'm fine. Hey, but you, where did you catch that mouse under your eye?
Oh, I'm sharp as a trap, I am. You were so right about Miss Bushnell. She's not only dangerous, she's daffy.
Huh? I didn't know she could hit that hard.
Oh, she didn't. Let's just say that she has a novel way of introducing people to her boyfriend.
Oh.
You know him? Leo Corbett?
Well, if I knew any more, I'd be the Racing Commission's witness. He owns a string of very fast horses who run very slow until the odds get right. Then he bets them up to the brisket, wins himself a potful. It's also rumored that he is stiff competition to the Perry Mutual machines. He books big bets among the owners.
Well, they'll catch up to him sooner or later. They always do.
Amen. But about that human glue factory, my friend, the horse-killing colonel. What's with him?
Well, I offered him $60,000 for Piledriver.
Huh?
That's $10,000 more than he'd get if he knocked him off and collected the insurance.
Yeah, where are you going to lay your mitts on 60 G's? I haven't got that kind of dough.
We don't need that kind of dough, little Nettie. You see, I told Bushnell that I was sending to California for my private vet, and that he'd be here in 3 days. And that once he pronounced the horse sound, I'd give him the money.
Yeah, but that only means that Piledriver is safe for another 3 days. And then what?
And those 3 days is up to me to prove intent. And if it's there, I'll prove it. And have the policy canceled. Once that's done, he'll probably be willing to peddle the horse for $10,000.
That I can handle. But in the meantime, I'm not taking any chances, see? I'm keeping Piledriver under my own personal eye.
I wish you wouldn't, Eddie. We don't want the colonel getting suspicious.
I can't help it, Mr. Dollar. I just can't help it.
Okay, Nettie, but don't blow it. Be careful. Like all racetracks, Hiawatha was surrounded by motor courts and bungalows with rooms for rent. So, expense account item 4, $3, room rent. I set the tin alarm clock for 8 and my ear for any time and went most of the way to sleep. First things being first, I dreamed of girls. Then I dreamed of fire engines. Then suddenly I realized why. I was hearing something. I bounced out of bed and over to the window. There I saw an incendiary sunset hanging over the racetrack stables. I jumped into my pants and into the landlady's car and got over there as fast as a 1929 Ford could take me. Hey, you. What? How'd it start?
I started to break those tables. I don't know how, but the guards were looking for a little guy with a limp who was hanging around.
Oh, where'd he go?
I didn't see him, but I hear he ran in the car and didn't come out. Some crank, I guess.
I had one particular horse to get to in a hurry, and I hoped one particular guy. The door to Piledriver's stall was closed and padlocked. I crowbarred the stable out of the wood with the pick end of a fire axe. Threw the door open, grabbed a lungful of fresh air, closed my eyes, and slammed into the smoke. I could have been smoked to death, burned to death, or stamped to death, but I had to take the chance. Steady, yo. Whoa, Piledriver. Now, take it easy. Easy, boy. I whacked him on the rump with the axe handle and then dropped it. I slipped to my knees, started groping across the straw-covered floor. I knew that if there was any air in there, that's where it would be. And if there was an ex-jockey in there, that's where he would be. And that's where he was. In the first corner I tried. I crossed this backwards toward the door, dragging him, inch by inch, out into the clean, cold shower of fresh night air. But I could have saved myself the trip. Little Nettie Montana was dead. He'd had a horseshoe hung on his forehead, but not for luck. And all I could think of at the moment was, a jockey's best friend is not always his horse.
In just a moment, we will return to the second act of Johnny Dollar. But first, may we take just a moment from tonight's Johnny Dollar story to remind you that 3 more fine adventure shows come your way each Saturday night on most of these same CBS stations. First, there are The Adventures of Philip Marlowe, based on the smart and tough Private Eye created by Raymond Chandler. Second, there's Gangbusters, one of the most famous crime shows on the air, reenacting outstanding police cases in real life. Third, there is Escape, a highly unusual adventure show which fulfills your need for escape. Hear these 3, Philip Marlowe, Gangbusters, and Escape, along with yours truly, Johnny Dollar, every Saturday night, won't you?
Tune in this fall for the shows that you love best of all.
Listen carefully.
Here's the address. It's CBS.
Now, with our star, Charles Russell, we return to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Tough luck. Nice try, little Nettie.
Mr. Dollar, this is horrible. Why, it's little Nettie.
It sure is. What's left of little Nettie?
You don't...
Yeah, I mean, he's dead. You know, when I was a kid, I knew about a story with a horse and a woman in it. Helen of Troy. I should have remembered that before I tangled with you. Why don't you get lost?
Why, whatever's the matter with you?
Look, Miss Bushnell, 2 minutes after I met you, you bagged me into a fist fight with your boyfriend with a phony kiss. I don't know how much you had to do with putting little Nettie where he is, but I intend to find out.
Why, you're insane. Any fool, even you, Mr. Dollar, can plainly see that this boy's been kicked in the head by a horse.
Lila, child, what are you doing here?
Why, I saw
Why? Who's that on the ground? Why? It's little Nettie. Don't tell me he's dead.
What would you be if you got kicked in the head by a horse, Colonel?
Why, the poor boy. I held this lad in deep affection until just a few months back. He was my best jockey. What on earth was he doing around here at this time of night?
From all I can see, little Nettie swapped his life for Piledriver's. As small as he was, it's a pretty big price to pay. Although I guess you wouldn't think so, would you?
What? What's that? I demand an explanation of precisely what you mean, sir.
I mean that to some people, a dead horse is more valuable than a live one. Too bad you can't go count your money. I gotta take my friend to the morgue. An hour later, little Nettie was resting better than I was. I'd made my report to the police and was back pacing the floor of my rented room. There wasn't a long walk. Yeah?
This is Lila Bushnell. I gotta see you right away.
Why don't you start another fire? That'll draw me.
I didn't have anything to do with that fire, but I must talk to you right away. Where can I meet you?
Have you got a car?
Yes, I'll come any place.
Now, pick me up here in 20 minutes. Come alone, and we'll take a little drive to the country. I want it to be just the three of us. You and me and the dewdrops. Dawn was making a dark gray promise in the sky when she picked me up, and a few easy-to-please birds had found something to sing about. During the first 5 miles, Lila denied everything except that she was a woman, and there was no hiding that. I had her pull in under a tree and said, "Well, then why'd you call me?"
It was something you said to my father about a horse being more valuable dead than alive.
You sold me out once. What are you planning on now? Selling out your old man? You women. You know, if the truth is ever told, it'll probably come out that Goldilocks cut her grandmother's throat to swipe the gold out of her teeth.
Please don't make fun of me.
Fun, she calls it. Well, if you got something to spill, get it off your chest.
My father owes Leo Corbett $50,000. He lost it betting on Piledriver. Leo's been demanding his money, and Father doesn't have it. And I heard Leo practically order Father to destroy Piledriver for the insurance.
And what did Daddy dear say to that?
He said he'd do it. But I know he wouldn't. I know he didn't set that fire.
How do you know?
I just know, that's all.
Now, that'll sound good to a jury. Why are you coming to me with all this stuff?
Because you're our only hope. Can't you buy Piledriver right away? It would solve everything.
Everything but one thing.
What's that?
Why did you go to all that trouble to get me punched in the eye?
Oh, that?
Yeah.
I just wanted to show Leo that he wasn't going to have everything his own way. And you look strong enough to do it.
Wow. That's a stupid answer. Why not? Makes a stupid kind of sense. She dropped me off at my rooming house where I dropped off to sleep. It was, however, only a 4-hour plunge. Expense account item 5, $650. Cab fare to headquarters, Homicide Division, Chicago Police. That's one city where the cops still wear an old-fashioned star, but they sure do operate with a new-fashioned speed. As witness the enclosed report made by Lieutenant Craig 6 hours after filing of inquiry.
According to the findings of the autopsy, Dollar, your hunch, or whatever you call it, was right. The deceased, little Nettie, was not kicked to death by a horse. Examination of the wound reveals that it was administered by a new horseshoe. A shoe on a horse's hoof would have left traces of straw, etc. We say that the fatal weapon was swung by person or persons unknown. As you suggested, he'd have to have been standing on his head to have the horseshoe make the mark it did if the horse had kicked him.
The lieutenant had made only one mistake. He should have said person or persons known. Expense account item 6, 10 cents, 2 telephone calls. The idea I was working on, I'll give you for nothing. Expense account item 7, $650. Cab fare to Administration Building, Hiawatha Racetrack, where the afternoon's program was in progress, and where I got the wholehearted cooperation of the track officials and the use of a vacant office in which to hold the meeting I had set up. I sat myself in a swivel chair and waited. Come in.
Mr. Dollar, I can't tell you how happy I am that our little transaction is about to be consummated. If you have the money with you, sir, Piledriver is yours.
Now, wait a minute, Colonel. Let's not go consummating too quickly.
But, my boy, you indicated over the telephone.
I indicated over the phone just this. I said my offer was as good as it ever was. And to tell you the truth, it's not very good.
Now, see here. Who's that?
Sit down, Colonel. Come in.
Why, Leo, what are you doing up here?
Anytime anybody shows up to hand over 60,000 to you for Piledriver, I'm going to be here. That's exactly what this smart guy called me up to tell me he's about to do.
Now, gentlemen, let's take it easy. Before I do anything, I want to make sure I'm not doing business with a murderer.
Sir, I demand an explanation.
What about you, Leo?
Yeah, so do I.
Well, here it is. The Chicago police know two things. One, that last night's fire was set. And two, that little Nettie was murdered. And that little Nettie got a couple of lungfuls of smoke before he got hit over the head with a horseshoe. That means that whoever hit him over the head sucked in some smoke, too.
Well, I've never heard such a pack of nonsense in my life.
What are you getting at, wise guy?
Just what I told you. I don't want to do business with a murderer, especially $60,000 worth. But I've made it easy on you to prove that you aren't. You see, I got a doctor in the next room with portable X-ray equipment. If you've got fire smoke in your lungs, it'll show up. Now, how about it?
Why, this is ridiculous.
Why don't you leave the Dick Tracy stuff to the funny papers?
Because I don't feel like laughing. Now, once more, how about it?
Get it, I still don't know what this tomfoolery is about, and I'll feel downright silly while I'm doing it, but I'm willing to take my chances.
Okay. Leo, you're first. Follow me. Turning your back on a murderer is no way to stay healthy, but very often it's a good way to get him to make his move. This one did, right out the door, knocking me down en route, and the chase was on. Out of the building and out toward the grandstand and the racing circle.
And there they go. On the outside, Dreamy Boy by a neck. It's Brockbuster by a length, and it's Bodyguard by a head. And at the corner, it's Dreamy Boy.
It may have been Dreamy Boy at the quarter, and on the track, well, it was my quarry by 50 lengths as he headed up an aisle into the grandstand. Dreamy Boy was still doing fine down there, and I was moving up here, but up near the top of the grandstand and onto the ramp leading to the press box section. Just as Dreamy Boy hit the three-quarter, we hit the grandstand roof, and then we went into the stretch. Hey, Corbett, it's hopeless. You can't get much farther. You're running out of roof. I slid behind a ventilator and showed myself to draw his shots. He was lousy. If he hadn't been, I'd be dictating this with an air-conditioned elbow. Okay, Corbett, you've had it. I've been counting your shots. Corbett tried a few ventilators himself, and then apparently he decided the second time he fought me, he'd do better. He rushed in swinging. I was doing great trading punches, but he finally moved inside and threw one. I ducked low, but he came up fast with his knee. I sat down, and he took off, straight to the back corner edge of the pitched roof. He swung over the side and started to shinny down the 100-foot rain pipe. But that pipe was built to carry rain, not people. Finish line of one tiny segment of the human race. It was gambler, arsonist, murderer. Leo Corbett, by a head. Expense account item 8. Dinner for two at the Shangri-La in downtown Chicago. $34.40. Dinner itself only took 40 minutes and 8 of the dollars. The rest of the evening and the money was spent listening to the story of her life. A story which would not, by any means, win any Pulitzer Prize, or, for that matter, any husbands. But sometimes when you're interested in a girl like Lila, you have to act like you're interested in what she's saying. Expense account, item 9, $57.72. Airfare, Chicago to Hartford. Item 10, $1.50. One book to read on airplane, titled How to Win at the Races. As if I just hadn't found out. Expense account total, $1,449.22. I guess you could call that horse sense. Signed, yours, truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is produced and directed by Gordon T. Hughes and stars Charles Russell. Script by Paul Dudley and Gil Dowd. Featured in the cast were Bill Conrad, Doris Singleton, Jerry Hausner, Herb Butterfield, and Hal March. The special music is written and conducted by Wilbur Hatch. Be sure to be with us at this same time next week when another unusual expense account is handed in by
yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Those mystery adventure shows we mentioned earlier, the fun and music and fabulous Jackpot of Sing It Again, and two outstanding music shows. They're on tap for you every Saturday on most of these same CBS stations. Gene Autry comes along with his Sagebrush Ballads, and Vaughn Monroe is due with his songs and his great orchestra. In fact, you're invited to stay tuned right now for The Vaughn Monroe Show, for it follows immediately over most of these stations. Paul Masterson speaking. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Thank you.